welcome to the 432nd episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Logan. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I've been doing a lot of like look backs at classic issues of What If. Sometimes I look at old comics sometimes. I also do like off my mind, like random comics, random topics, comics, movies, Back to the Future, time travel, stuff like that. I think this week I may do another off my mind. I'm trying to do at least one per week. So I have a topic maybe. We'll see. I haven't really thought too much because they're off my mind. So we'll see how that goes. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck. And you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. All right, what do we have this week? The movie feature is Five Nights at Freddy 2. So, I was like looking forward to this. I'm not like a huge fan of the franchise or anything like that. I think it's kind of a neatish, concept. I think there's potential there. The first movie I thought was okay. I didn't love it. I know critics did not love the first one, but I didn't think it was that bad. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's see what we can do. I'm a Josh Hutcherson, is that his name, right? Fan. So we'll talk about that. Did I love it? We'll talk about that. And then we have the typical TV shows, the current TV shows that I'm covering. I'm only doing one episode of Stranger Things 5 per week because there's only 4 episodes until part 2, so we should be right on track for that. And I'm enjoying this season. Stranger Things for me is weird, just with the huge gaps, and I tend to forget things, and I was gonna say I would love to go. I've already said that. I'd love to go back, rewatch, but that's not gonna happen anytime soon. So maybe at some point. Then we also have Welcome to Derry. I absolutely love this show. It's so well made. I'm so happy we have this. We got Pluribus. I have no idea where the show's going, and I love that. And then we have Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake. This week's episode, this is interesting. Yeah, it's like, where are we going with this? And I'm loving this. It's like they're just doing whatever they want, and it's almost like they got the approval to make the show, and it's like, okay, yeah, do what you want to do. You don't have to, hit certain things, do certain things. So I'm enjoying it. I'm not sure why we're seeing some of the things we're seeing. But let's talk about some news. So the big news, when it was this it was in the early morning, early hours of Friday, it turned out that it was announced that Netflix, and this is my understanding of it, they won the right to negotiate with Warner Brothers over the sale. So this was like super, like in the early hours, I think it was. And then when I woke up, my buddies, I was like, hey, Netflix got Warner Bros. I was like, yeah, I heard about it. But I was like, no, didn't they just win the right to bid on it? Because I think the way it was is I don't know if they set a certain number and then they're going to have to, finagle the details from there. But then it must not have taken that much negotiating. $82.7 billion. If I cursed on this podcast, I would curse right there. That is insane. 82 billion. Part of me is like, did I write that wrong? 82 billion. Oh my goodness. And and I don't understand this. I don't know why is this like normal? Why is Warner Brothers constantly going through so many like changes, like trying to sell? Because we just. So that's the thing. Because of all this stuff going on, like the good news and bad news, because I know, some people are excited, some people are panicking. We're not going to see any changes like right away, because one, a deal, this massive of a sale or whatever, it has to be. I don't understand this, but there's a whole like trades, whatever federal commission and stuff like that. They need to look at it to make sure everything's legit, I guess, because there's whole like make sure it's not a monopoly or whatever and stuff like that. I don't really understand all the little gritty details about that. So they have to figure out all that finagling stuff. But then the Warner Brothers Discovery, it has to separate, because I guess Discovery is a separate thing, and it seems like it's not going to really like start up until third quarter 2026. So it's not like all of a sudden it's like oh, we're going to start seeing Batman on Netflix or whatever. It's going to take some time. And the other things is, people were concerned is like, does this mean no more movies? Obviously, theatrical movies. They would be dumb to cut theatrical movies. Yes, there is a cost in theatrical movies, and yes, they want to have the best product on their streaming platform to get people to go there. But I don't know how that equates, having people subscribing versus having people, making millions of dollars in the box office. Now, because you have your trade-offs. It's like, okay, if a movie costs $100 million to make, you may not get, and they say it's like, okay, it's not just about making $100 million back. You have to make, they usually say 3 times that amount because of all the promotional stuff or whatever. So if you have to do that, and it's possible a movie might not make $300 million, and then it's considered a loss. The way I look at it, it's like, okay, you have that, but if you're going to make a movie that costs $1 million, if you go straight to streaming, you're not going to make anything back. So maybe, are you saving the promotional stuff because you don't have to worry about doing press tour? I mean, they're still going to do press tours. You're still going to have like premieres and red carpets, but maybe, I don't know if Netflix, they must do the rounds. Because usually with the movies they'll go to Europe or Paris or China. I don't know if they do premieres all over the place, because you want to appeal to the different markets. So it seems like to go, because then whatever, if they're going to have a shorter theatrical window, which I think I mentioned that, then you start you're the exclusive streamer at home. So one of the things they said about having shorter theatrical windows, and I don't know how I feel about this, because they want to make the movies available to as many people as possible in the comfort of whatever. But you can't just turn your back on, say, screw you theaters. You're not going to make any money now, and they have to see the aspect of movies should be seen on the biggest screen possible. How many times people watching Netflix on their phones or whatever, that's not how they're meant to be seen. If you're watching a TV show, and even that you shouldn't watch on a TV, but I don't know. So we have all that. And so they're saying that the Warner Brothers movies that are like still in the works, that those are still going to go to theaters. So hopefully that will continue. They will go to the theaters through Warner Brothers. So it's not like all of a sudden like, oh, this movie's from Netflix. It's like, no, they're still, Warner Brothers, that is a name brand. So it just because you're acquiring doesn't mean, you acquire it and you just bury it. That doesn't really make sense. But then, Netflix will gain access to the film vault. So they'll be able to, stream all that stuff. They'll have like all the HBO Max TV shows and everything that they'll be able to do that. Now, that's the other question is like, what does that mean for HBO Max? To me, it would be smart. It's like, keep the 2 streaming platforms, because that way you're charging people twice as much, or not even twice as much. Because if you're going to combine them, then what are they going to do? Are they going to jack up the prices? That could be a turnoff. Yes, they're going to have all this content that people will want, but some people are being like, I'm not going to pay $30 a month for this, because the whole idea is, a lot of people are moving away from cable. Cable costs, the prices have skyrocketed. People don't want to pay that, so it's like, oh, I'll take this platform or this whatever, this streamer. But now if it's getting crazy, it used to be like oh, $10 to stream this, and it's like, $12, $15, 20. It's like, it's getting to be too expensive. So they got to be careful with that. But they're going to have stuff like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones. They got so much coming in. They also said that they're going to be creating more jobs. My thing was like, oh boy, a lot of people are going to be losing jobs, because usually when we get these mergers, people become redundant, because you have like people already, like two people doing like one job, like director of operations, whatever, if that's even a position. You don't need two director of operations, because you can consolidate that. So, but if they're still focusing on the movie, the theatrical aspect, and so I don't know, but I don't see how it's going to create more jobs. Maybe they're not just going to lay off. I hope I'm wrong, but I just feel like there's going to be some layoffs happening, but maybe not, because there's so much content. I don't know. There's so much to deal with. Like with Netflix now, when I get the different press releases, there are different PR people that handle. I feel like they're given like, okay, you have these 5 shows that are coming out. You'll have these 5. You have these 5. They split it. Rather, like with comics, usually you just have like 1 or 2 PR people that handle everything. You don't have like, okay, you handle the Batman and Superman comics, you handle the Wonder Woman and the Justice League. It's different that way. So I think it's good if they can afford this, whatever. It makes sense. You don't want to have someone, when they're putting out so much content, you can't have one person cover everything, because if there's so many assets. You got trailers, you got like images, you got posters, and then interviews, and then this and that, whatever. And to have one person try to cover it all, and then if someone has like, oh, I have a request for this, and then yeah. So hopefully they'll continue that, where they'll have different people who are going to be kind of like experts in their specific items that they're promoting, versus trying to have one person cover like a huge amount. So we'll have to see. But then a lot of people are excited. They're like, yeah, we're going to get the Snyderverse and restore the Snyderverse and everything. I've said it before. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, I don't know if this is true. I saw someone posted that, oh, Netflix has quietly canceled all the Zack Snyder stuff, all the Rebel Moon and the Army of Dead stuff, because we were supposed to get more. Weren't we supposed to get like an Army of Dead animated series or whatever? I feel like those things haven't been super well received. It's not at the fanatic level of the Snyderverse. I'll say that. So if they had all these plans, they wanted to have this like shared universe. Somehow Rebel Moon and Army of Dead were, in the same universe, even though like it does. One's like sci-fi and the other's like zombies on Earth. So it doesn't feel like those things have been working. So Netflix may have lost a little confidence in Zack Snyder. He's absolutely a name brand, and he knows how to market. He knows how to bait his fans and get them talking or whatever. But I don't feel that that stuff's necessarily working for a mainstream audience. It's not even working in his audience. I don't know. But then if you say, okay, we're going to restore the Snyderverse, that's going to be so expensive. And if they paid $82.7 billion, I don't think they're going to necessarily looking like, okay, let's go out and spend another, $500 million or what? Because how much would it cost? Because if you're going to bring these movies back, you need to get contracts with all the actors. You need to say, hey, Henry Cavill, you back on board? Hey, Ben Affleck. Hey, Gal Gadot. Hey, everyone. While they may have expressed like, yeah, I'd love to come back and do it again. Maybe they only want to do it for one movie. And if you're going to restore the Snyderverse, you can't just have, Ben Affleck Batman back for one, and then what are you going to do? Recast or have him die off? No one wants that. So all these actors would have the potential to play hardball. They're like, okay, you want me back? Let's negotiate, man. I want some money. So that's going to be a lot of money to do that. And then the other thing is, all these actors, I'm sure their plates are full. Are any of them just sitting around, lounging by the pool in the back, doing nothing? They all have like probably like stuff that's happening, whatever. So even if they make it happen, it would be way down the road. And then the other thing, they're getting older, and so it's like how old do you want these characters to be? Because Superman shouldn't really be aging. And then there's the fact that we've already started a DC universe, so they basically have paid for that as well. We have Superman, Man of Tomorrow coming. We had Supergirl, and there's other stuff that are in the work. That is part of the 82.7. That is like part of the value what they bought into. And Warner Brothers has done this, spent all this money building that up. So then they're just going to say, okay, we're just going to cancel all that to work on something that a small, very vocal minority cares about, and other people may not care that much about. So I would be very shocked if it came back. Maybe they would do like some sort of special or one-off thing, but no. I just hope for the sake, it's like we just need to put an end to it. Just move on. You can't do it. It'd be like saying, I was gonna say, oh, I want Tobey Maguire Spider-Man back. Well, they kind of did that, but that doesn't really I mean, I don't know what example I could use, or I was gonna say Val Kilmer Batman. Can't do that. I don't know. Moving on. Scarlett Johansson. Speaking of Batman, she is apparently cast in The Batman 2. We don't know what. The big speculation, everyone's speculating. I saw ones like, here's 5 characters she could be playing. Here's a character she probably won't be playing. It's like, whatever. I don't know how many. I've seen so many different, like within sites, like multiple posts, and I'm not going to click on all these because it's like there's no information. And you're just like random this, and that could be fun to read if you're really curious. It's like, oh, what are the thoughts? Oh, I never thought about, there could be stuff like that. But, previously like, oh, Mask of the Phantasm, that was like a huge thing. We've never had live action, maybe that could be, whatever. I don't know. The other thing, I don't know if this was new or not. I hadn't heard about it before. My buddy said that I don't know if he said Deadline reported or whatever, and one of the scoopers reported it, that Zoe Kravitz is not coming back. And I don't know the reason why. I don't know if it's a scheduling, conflict or whatever, or if it's a money thing. But that seems like it's weird that with the way the first one, we're not going to get Catwoman, Selena Kyle, and with from the Penguin, if the Penguin is tied to it, and if we may potentially get Penguin season 2, there's sort of mention of Selena there as well. So I don't know. And let's say Zoe Kravitz like, no thanks. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to wear this suit, or I'm going to do this. I want to direct more or whatever. Would they recast? Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. What about Star Wars? Star Wars New Hope. 50th anniversary is coming up. Not for a couple years, but still, if you're going to do it right, you can start making some plans now. So originally it was supposed to come out, I think it was like April. I don't know if I have April 2027. But now it is being moved up to February 19th, 2027. And I don't know if this is official, but the report I read said it is going to be the original 1977 theatrical release, not the 1997 version. That is crazy. That is awesome. I just wonder if it's going to be, I wonder if is it going to be a bit of a letdown or not? But I mean, I think if you're going to do the anniversary right, yes, show us the original. Even if there are any flaws or whatever, say what you will about what George Lucas, they were his movies. If he felt he wanted to improve them, great. Some of his changes weren't maybe executed the best, but still, it's his property, and I could totally see like you're looking at something, you're like, wow, man, that is really bothering me. I can't even look at that. I mean, it's like it doesn't even compare. But there are times where I draw digitally. I draw using the Procreate app, and there's times where I haven't been doing it so much lately because I've just been kind of burnt out of just trying to push myself, and then whatever. But so I would try to have it, and because I don't have time, it's like, okay, I have to have a week to do this. So I gave myself this crunch, which is a really bad idea. But I mean, that's what artists do all the time. You have to work with a deadline, otherwise you're never going to finish it. And so sometimes when I'll do it, it's like, okay, I got to finish this. It's Thursday, whatever. Here we go. And then after I might look at it, I was like, oh, I just noticed this, because there's always going to be something, and that's the beauty of digital art, and I'm sure with movies, film digitally or whatever, or with After Effects or whatever stuff you can do, where you can go back and clean this up. So when I draw, it's like, okay, I can either erase this or draw over it or fix this or whatever. Like, I colored over the lines here or whatever. I can fix that. I can adjust it. And I even though I may have posted my art already, I can go back and do it, if anything, for myself. I'm not going to repost it online because no one hardly cares in the first place. I totally see that George Lucas could be like, yeah, I don't like this, or like the way like Jabba the Hutt was originally intended, and then he'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. He ended up not using it because he didn't like it. So I'm sure I'm in the minority with that. But to go back, it'll be interesting to see, because I feel like for so many of us, even if you've had the opportunity to see the original, it's probably been a long time. I'm pretty sure I have them on VHS. I have original versions. I haven't tried to watch or whatever. But for so many people, because they haven't been accessible, it could be they could be like, oh wow. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Another interesting thing. So Spider-Man Noir, I'm not sure how I feel. We'll see how this is going to go. But the main thing, I think there's some new information or whatever. Let's just like the tagline or whatever plot details. But what I found the most interesting is with the posters that was released, and there's like a color poster and a black and white noir poster. And I think, I could be wrong, I think they are making them available in color and black and white. So then the question is, which one do you watch? Are they both going to be released at the same time, or do you have to wait a week? I mean, it would be kind of smart maybe to do it that way. But the interesting thing is, you have kind of like a detective window. So the window says, B. Riley. So it's not Peter Parker that we're getting in this. It's going to be Ben Riley. It's an interesting choice. Maybe it's to avoid confusion. So people are like, oh, this is Peter Parker, but Peter Parker's Tom Holland. I mean, people aren't that dumb that are going to be that confused. But that's an interesting choice. Okay, so that's fine. There was a trailer for 28 Years Later, Bone Temple Orchard. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, I thought the last one was fine. It was good. I wasn't like super excited. I don't like that it kind of ended on a weird cliffhanger. It's cool that they shot these movies back to back, so we can get this one sooner. I do think it's weird that there's been a huge, gap or whatever between part 2 and part 3, right? That was the third one. This is the fourth. So it seems weird. It's like years, decades, whatever. And then these two movies are less than a year apart. So I don't know. And then watching this, it's almost like we're got this whole not subgenre, sub movie, sub story. I don't know what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it. So it's going to be, I think it's January 16th. But I'm not super excited for it. And maybe, I don't know, the zombie approach, I appreciate, I love that they have their own take on zombies and that they don't necessarily call them zombies. But I'm not super excited. I could be wrong. Maybe once it comes out, I'll change my mind, or maybe after I see it, I'll be like, wow. But we have that, so you can check out that trailer. It's just, yeah, we got all this other stuff happening. It's like okay. There was a trailer. I'm excited for. There was a trailer for Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. So there's no date for this. I don't think they've talked about it. It's just listed as coming soon. So this is Samara Weaving. I think she's really cool. I feel bad that I haven't watched the movie that she had on Hulu that came out. I didn't have time. I don't have time for anything. But this looks good. It picks. Now I'll admit, as excited as I am for this, as much as I love the first movie, from what we see in the trailer, I feel like the premise is a little silly. Still, I am thankful that we're getting it. So basically, it's picking right up at the end of the first movie, and she survived this the ordeal. I won't spoil in case you haven't watched the first one, but then another group is like, oh no, you got to do this again now, and I just feel like the whole idea is she was playing a game and it was like basically like hide and seek. Why the same game? Why not a different one? But a different one wouldn't work as well. And to give her incentive, apparently they're bringing in her sister, who's played by Catherine Newton, and I think she's cool. I like what I've seen. Lucy Frankenstein, Ant-Man. What else was she in? Freaky with Vince Vaughn. That's the thing. I was trying to explain this to my wife. I was like, I was like, oh yeah, because I was talking about this movie. I was like, how's that actress? What was she in and everything? And I could not think of Vince. I was like, the guy from now I can't think of the movie that he was in, the Money Baby movie, whatever. Sarah Michelle Gellar is going to be in it. I'm pretty sure it was Elijah Wood, right? So I'm excited for this. It's going to be silly. And go watch Mayhem with Samara Weaving. I mean, she's great in that. We also, so this is the last thing I have. There was also a trailer for The Strangers Part 3. So I don't understand why so many people do not like these movies. I love these movies. I like the whole concept. I'm intrigued. I really like what they're doing here. The first Strangers movie was great. Was there only one other one? I feel like there's two other ones, but maybe there's only one other one. And I felt it was ridiculous because it's like a totally different location, no explanation for anything. But with these movies, it's like we're getting like almost like a 6-hour story because it's continuing. And Madeleine Petsch, I love her. I think she's great, and I'm excited to see as we're building, because even in like the second one, we start to find out more like the backstory of who are these strangers, who are these people. I want to know who the heck Tamara is. So yeah, we have this, and this is going to happen on February 6th. So I'm super excited because this is less than a year. But yeah, for some reason, people are just not happy with the movies, and I don't understand. When it's a horror movie, it's like, what do you want? And I feel like it's building up the story, and I don't know if people want more instant gratification, or I don't know what it is. What I do know, this is the end of the news, but not the end of the podcast. That is the news for the week. All right, with comic books, there's a couple things I didn't get around to reading. There was Speed Racer number 5 came out. I say it every time. I love Speed Racer. This does wrap up the first story arc. I know that, so I definitely need to check that out. There's also Eat Your Young number 4, so that's a Brian Buccellato comic. Blue Falcon Dynamite number 4. So I read this. I don't remember if I read issue 3 or not. Well, I must have, but I was reading this. Dynamite's already in costume. It's like I don't remember him. It's like did I remember him getting in costume? So we have some. It's moving things along. I don't know how I feel like it. As I've mentioned before, I was a big fan of Blue Falcon Dynamite. The thing is with Dynamite is he's a little goofy. He's a talking robot-ish, cyborg dog, whatever you want to call him. And he kind of has a silly voice. In the comic, he can speak. The computer. He's not really talking like he does in the cartoon, but because the comic is a little more serious, it feels a little weird versus on a cartoon, Hanna-Barbera cartoon, it's I'm pretty sure it was Hanna-Barbera, right? Or was it? But it's a little more lighthearted, and it's almost like it doesn't translate well. But we do have interesting stories. Yeah, I won't go into specifics, but there's some things being developed, and it is kind of nice seeing Blue Falcon establishing yourself, because now that Dynamite, they're fighting together, and just like with the technology, like with the what were they called, like not levitating belts, but anti-gravity belts or something like that, because so Blue Falcon can fly, and basically his belt was taken and it was sold, and so he was able to track it, so there's like all this stuff going on. So I do like that, they're giving him, a little more tech to give him that edge versus, because he doesn't have superpowers, Blue Falcon. So there's some interesting things there. There's some other stuff. I think there's like Terminator, whatever, Thundercats. I don't know if I'm ever going to get caught up on those. Hopefully someday. At Image, there wasn't a whole lot at Image that came out. There was Rook Exodus #9. I didn't get around to that. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it's not my favorite of the Jeff Johns books. It is interesting, and Jason Fabok's art is amazing. So I will definitely read that. I didn't get around to it. There is G.I. Joe 15. And with this, again, the same thing. I don't remember if I read 14. I must have. Maybe I did. Because I think it was like Dreadnought something, not Dreadnought War, part 3 of 5. So it's like, did I read part 2? But we have, Duke went after, there's like an Energon location or a ping or something like that. So and then he sees like, oh, there's Cobra. It's like, what's Cobra doing and stuff like that. He ends up kind of like saving Cobra, but then he gets captured. And so we have a Road Pig. I'm trying to remember if he was ever in a cartoon or anything like that. So, because he's separate from the Dreadnoks. So he's got Cobra and Duke both captured. One of the things I was like, oh, you can't do that because like, Cobra's captured. He's like hanging by his wrists, like on a chain, and his helmet's off. And we don't see his face. We should never see his face, I feel like. But he's in the shadows, and there's strong hints that his face, he's kind of deformed, or there's some, when someone said that he was hideous. But I feel like it's like people shouldn't see what he looks like. And I still remember in the comics, I don't think he was hideous in the Larry Hama comics. And because there was one issue where it was Destro, Cobra. I feel like there's someone else where they had to like make an escape, and they couldn't use their helmets, Destro's helmet and Cobra. So like Cobra just had like sunglasses and I think it was like a fake goatee and mustache or whatever, and so we have that. But yeah, it's good. I mean, Joshua Williamson's doing a good job writing, and Tom Riley's art, and Jordi Bella's colors. So, I mean, I'm really digging this G.I. Joe. Over at Marvel, we had a few things. I'm not even pretending or trying or gonna pick up or flip through the X-Men books. I could be missing out on something. I don't know, but I don't have the desire or the time to try to follow up with them. To me, it just seems like I'm so limited on time, and I complain about it. I know it's annoying, but it's like, what's going to happen with these stories? These are going to end. It's not like, oh, this is the new status quo. It's like, no, it's not. Things are going to revert back. There may be some fallout, but the thing is, who's going to really remember any of the fallout? Because I think Cyclops will probably have some recollection. I don't know. They mentioned a Beast was, whatever, dealt with like shortly after Cyclops, but I don't know if he's going to remember anything. So we had Amazing X-Men. This is what, issue 3. No idea what's going on there. Binary. I was tempted, but I couldn't remember if I read issue 2. The first issue I thought was okay. No, I think I flipped through the second one because there's stuff with like Carol and Phoenix. I think now she has the Phoenix Force, but I didn't look at that. Doctor Strange #1. So this is who's a creative team on this. We have Derek Landry doing the writing. Ivan Fiorelli does the art. Dono Sanchez Almara is a color artist. Corey Petit does the letters. So we still have Doctor Strange in Asgard, and I don't love that. And apparently, because something happened, they're cut off from Midgard. So I think all because it used to be 10 realms, but because Lady Sif makes it, she's like, now it's just 9. So Doctor Strange can't get back to Earth anytime soon. So he became the Sorcerer Supreme of Asgard. Is he the Sorcerer Supreme? I think they're calling him that. So because he hid what like Loki was doing, and Loki apparently killed Thor, which I'm still not sure about that because we have the Mortal Thor comic. So Sif isn't really super happy with Doctor Strange, but he is a sorcerer, so he's like, well, use me. He's like, let me help, and stuff like that. So he goes to heaven, whatever, and runs into Angela, and which is nice that she is being used. So he goes on this. He tries to deal with a problem there, and things are obviously going to be messy. And is what his part, is it making things worse? Not that it's like his fault necessarily, but yeah. So there's that. Fantastic Four number 6, Invincible Woman Part 1. I'm fine with the idea of building up Sue Storm, making her a fierce and formidable character, member of the team. John Byrne, he especially did that. He's the one that changed her from Invisible Girl to Invisible Woman. And with Ryan North, he says that Sue is the leader of the team, and I like that they're using the fact is she has a doctorate or PhD or whatever, so she's got a brain definitely, and it's cool to see her come up with solutions and stuff like that. It's a little unbalanced because she didn't do this so much, but maybe she just felt like she didn't need to or whatever. So whatever the case is, it's cool to see her doing more. And this issue was almost like a showcase of doing different things. It's like oh, what can Sue do? And then it basically sets up what this story arc is going to be. Because spoiler, I'll say at the end there's like this hidden message somewhere. There's this huge implications with not like the universe, I guess. And there is like a message, kind of like for Sue type of thing. And Reed is like caught off guard by this, because of who it's from. So we'll have to see where that's going to go. There was Hulk Smash Everything. I didn't check this out. I don't know if this is one that is worth looking at. I feel like this is out of continuity. Hulk is the Infernal Hulk. That I don't know how I feel about that. Wasn't super crazy about the first issue. This just from there's I think it was in the preview page or whatever, where there's like Hulk and Doctor Strange. So obviously it's not continuity because Doctor Strange's on Earth and Hulk's normal. So I don't know it's written by Ryan North, so it's probably, maybe I will check it out at some point, but I don't really know like what's the point. It's like, oh, let's just tell a Hulk story. And I don't know. I guess we don't really have a Hulk so much anymore. Maybe it's a good thing that we have this issue. So maybe I'll check that out. There's Laura Kinney Sabretooth number 3. As much as I love Laura Kinney, I didn't read that. There's Marvel Black, White, and Blood and Guts number 3. This was written by B. Earl and Taboo. Luke Ross does the art. There's another story by Gary Maloney with Baldemar Rivas doing the art. And then Philip Kennedy Johnson did a story with Christian Rosado doing the art. So yeah, I'm not a big enough Punisher fan to read that. Because what's going to be Punisher killing people probably. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 41. I did pick this up. I did flip through it. But it's just, I'm so tired it's like we need to do something with Miles because it's just so not interesting. I feel like his character's changed so much. But we have him dealing with Rabble. I find Rabble so excruciating, annoying. The reasons that she hates Miles. I don't like the fact that she knows Miles' identity. So that's just annoying, whatever. And then we got this assessor dude's back. I didn't care for that when that first happened. And then, so I was just like flipping through to see like what's going on. Someone pops up, someone returns, and at first I was like, wait, I didn't even catch who it was. So it's a character that has their own book, but they're not in the vicinity, and then suddenly they're here, and they're not in the vicinity in their own book. So I was like, wait, what? Spoiler? Something? I don't know. Spider-Man Noir #3. This is interesting. It's a little messy, just in what's going on in Peter's life. He took on a case. Gwen Stacy, her father was killed, and she wanted to find out like who killed her father. So she hires a detective, hires Peter Parker, Spider-Man. He is Peter Parker here. He's not Ben Reilly. It turns out Peter found out that, oh crap, I killed her, because he was fighting the Scorpion gang, and one of the gang members pointed a gun at him, was about to shoot him. Self-defense, he shot first, and he ended up killing him. So then it's like, well, why was George Stacy mixed up with the Scorpion gang? What does that mean? That there's evidence. He had like the secret safe and like all this stuff. So it's like George Stacy was a little shady, possibly. Was he undercover or was he really bad? But it almost looks like he was bad. And throughout this, Peter and Gwen are starting to kind of develop like a relationship or that. So it's like, what is that going to mean when, if she finds out that, oh, hey, I killed your dad. So he does, spoiler, he does tell her that, that her dad was mixed up in some shady stuff, and that I think he tells her that Spider-Man killed her, but she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man. And if they're in this relationship, should he tell her? Because we have Mary Jane in here. Mary Jane knows, and Aunt May knows his identity, that he's Spider-Man. And both of them are like, are you going to tell her? You can't be in a relationship without. And one thing, this is the thing that bothers me, is because Mary Jane's like, that's practically lying if you don't tell her. I don't know. But it is kind of weird if they're talking, if they're being, lovey-dovey or intimate or whatever. And it's like, dude, you killed her father. It's like, this is never going to work. I mean, will she understand that it was self-defense? But it's like, kind of crazy. And then there's this like other villain character, which, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Then we have Spider-Girl #7. I didn't read this. I think this is the last issue. I don't get this comic. I'm okay with the character. I from what I've read of her before, and I've read some of these Spider-Girl issues, I just don't understand why we have another Spider-Girl. There's like so many different Spider-Girls, and there's other Spider-Girls that I'd rather read about, and then let's create a new character. So I don't understand why we do that. And in fact, we have a Spider-Girl comic, but we don't have Spider-Boy anymore. They ended that, and it's like, okay, it's just another kid with spider, and she doesn't even really have spider powers, but she has web shooters, and I don't know. So it's not for me. So that's fine. At some point I need to read Star Wars Legacy of Vader. That cover, I'm like, what the heck is going on with that cover? So Kylo Ren, there's a Darth Vader helmet being put on him. And this, it's written by Charles Soule. He's written a lot of Star Wars stuff, a lot of great Star Wars stuff. And the problem is, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, does this have something to do with the movies? And this is a miniseries, but it's apparently ongoing. So I need to go back. But now we're at issue 11, so it's like I'm so far behind. Ultimate Universe #1, 2 years in. I started reading this, and I was just like, I couldn't get into it. And it's Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't care for some of the characters, and I don't care for like the versions of these characters. So I couldn't get into it. Ultimate X-Men 22. This is another one. At some point I'd like to read this, but with both of these, I'm like, well, the Ultimate Universe is ending, maybe. So it's like, why am I going to read these if they're ending? Venom 252, introducing the new Spider-Man. The rumors are true. So it's a play on Amazing Spider-Man 252. But who's this? It's not like it's a secret who this new Spider-Man is. So this series it's interesting. It's I feel like it's a little like off the chart. A little. The fact is, so I don't think it's a spoiler anymore. So Venom has bonded with Mary Jane. There's reasons for that. It's weird and wacky, but that's where we're at. And there's this anti-symbiote government, whatever agency division, and it's being led by Doc Ock, which is extremely ridiculous. Doc Ock is a complete villain. I'm sure he's a straight up murderer. He's probably murdered so many people, and the government's going to give him a clean slate to run this operation when he's so unhinged. And so, he's in this fight in the streets of New York, and there's all these civilians around, and he doesn't care. And he's got his two henchmen, as he calls them. He even like says that, and like Luke Cage is there. He's like henchmen. I think it was Luke that said that. He's like, no. It was like, that doesn't mean anything. He's like, yeah. So, we'll see. I don't know. And then just like some other stuff that gets set up, and like the last page is like, oh, this character is back. Okay, what does this mean? So I don't know about that. And then there's a Wiccan Witches Road. I didn't read this. I may try to read this. See, Wyatt Kennedy wrote this. I'm not really familiar. I don't know if I've read anything by Wyatt. Andy Pereira does the art. I'm not a big Wiccan fan, and I find him kind of annoying. And I've said this before, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he's a homosexual. It has to do with the fact that he's whiny. And I feel like anytime there's a story with him, he's either it's all about like, oh, Hulkling, because they're in love. Great, awesome. They're married. I love it. Let's have a gay married couple in comics. Let's have multiple. Let's have everyone. But the thing is, whenever I read comics with LGBTQ characters, they always show them being intimate, whether they're holding hands, kissing, doing all this like that. And then you look at other characters, like, I mean, how often do you see Reed and Sue being lovey-dovey and stuff like that? So I feel like, whenever, I feel like with Wiccan, it's like he's mostly concerned after Teddy. There's something going on, and this could be different. If this is going to actually have him, develop his powers, do something with him, because it's like he's a trophy husband. It's like Teddy Hulkling. He's the emperor of whatever, the Kree Skrull. I don't even know, because I don't care about the space stuff. But have him do something, and if his mom is Scarlet Witch, amp him up, do something, rather than just have him sitting. But that's going to be the tricky part. Is like, how do you develop like the mystical magic, whatever, without having him out in space next to his husband? I mean, unless he has some way to teleport back and forth, if he, anytime he wants to visit his husband, because, it's not like he's going to be able to take a ship back and forth whenever. So I don't know. I feel like something more needs to be developed with him. And, so I was looking at, there's like one issue is like, oh, I think he's kissing Teddy in the forehead, whatever. It's like, it needs to be more, they're in love. Great. I don't want to read a romance comic. And, whether it's, if you put Peter Parker and Mary Jane back together, I don't need to see the romance part. It's like, great, but I want, comics are about action. Well, not just about action, but I feel like there needs to be more development with them, because I don't even think he has much of a personality. And maybe I need to go back and read like the Young Avengers things, but it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of, so we'll see. And I don't even know if that's just like a one-off or whatever, but I'll probably maybe check it out. At DC, let's see what I read. There's Batman #4. So this is the Matt Fraction, Jorge Jimenez. When I first started reading, I was like, oh, okay, because I love the first 3 issues. I was like, it maybe feels like then it kind of picks up a little bit. So what I do love about this, and I'm totally fine if they keep it like this, have it be not necessarily its own continuity, but don't necessarily get it mixed up with all the DC stuff. And Detective Comics is kind of doing that too. We have all this DC KO stuff. People love it, great. I don't love it. And with like Detective and with this Batman comic, it's a little more self-contained. It's more grounded. It's like awesome. That's what I want. Just do your own thing versus getting mixed up in this or Justice League this or Darkseid that or whatever. So I don't know. And then speaking of DCKO Night Fight #2, I'm a little unclear what's going on here. And I think that's intentional. And I think we get a little more answers. And the reason I say think is because, when I read these, I sometimes start skimming when it gets to be a bit much. And I'm 100% honest about that. But as I'm reading this, because I didn't love the first issue. And it was weird. So it's like, what happened? Spoiler. I mean, it's the first issue of DCKO. Batman gets killed by the Joker, which is just ridiculous. And somehow there's a way that he could sort of survive, or maybe, which is explained in the first issue. That, okay, I get it. That I buy that, or I will buy that. I'll accept that. And then things are just like weird, and it's like, wait, what's going on? Who are all these Robins? And then wait, there's a Batman. Dick, is that you? And how much time has passed? What's going on? It's like, okay, maybe in this way to survive, some time has gone by. So it's like, is this a future story? Like, what is happening here? And there's all this like stuff happening, and obviously from an entertainment standpoint, there's some merit here. But for me, I hate to say it, and this is what I need you to take into consideration when I'm kind of sort of like quote unquote complaining about comics. It's because I don't get to necessarily. I'm not reading comics just for entertainment. I'm reading them to try to keep up with what's going on so I can talk about it, and that kind of takes the fun out of it for me because it's more of a task. I said it's like it's work versus doing something that I would do for fun. So a lot of times I'm reading stuff that's like I don't really want to read, and I'm trying to. And I have been, I think, a lot, the last couple years or whatever. Where if there's something, if I really don't like it, I'm not going to read it because I don't want to sit here and just complain about it because that is no fun if you're a fan of that. But at the same time, there's like stuff happening, and then I'm like, wait, what is going on? Because there's some big development that was mentioned in this one series that I don't read, and yeah. So, but Night Fight, I'm not really sure what's going on. And then I think that was all I read because there was Green Lantern. I'm not even sure what number this was. And I'm on the fence with Green Lantern. So this is one that like I would be considering. Actually, I think it was Absolute Green Lantern. Yeah, so I haven't been picking up with that. JSA 14, I probably will try to go back and read this. I feel like I've fallen a little behind on this. So this is 14, but it's supposed to be JSA Year 1, I think I saw on there. So I don't know about that. Oh wait, there was a DCKO. I did see this. I was like, oh, Captain Atom. I thought it was just some other random Superman. Wow, they gave Superman versus Captain Atom their own issue. Okay, maybe I will have to check that out. It's by Joshua Williamson, apparently. Birds of Prey 28. I love this series, but isn't this series ending? Is this the last issue? I should probably read it, but I know I didn't read the previous issue. Batgirl, I fell behind. Poison Ivy's at issue 39, which is awesome. Adventures of Superman, book of something. Cheetah and Cheshire. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I read. So that is going to be comic books for the week. All right. Pluribus, season 1, episode 5, Got Milk. And I have no idea where we're going with this milk thing, what this means. So we'll have to find out. At the hospital, there's like random people working. They're not like all dressed in scrubs, and it seems it's weird. They show a lot of like tattooed people, and I don't know if that's supposed to be like, oh, tattooed people are different, they're deviants or whatever. And so you got someone in shorts and tattoos working in the hospital. They shouldn't be there, but because they're all the hive mind or whatever. I don't know. It seems weird, but I mean, I got tattoos, but. So Carol's waiting. She's squeezing this stress thing, and the phone starts ringing. So she answers it. And how dare you make my son cry? And she's like, lax me? So that's the annoying lady who doesn't care that her son is one of them. She's like, you have made everyone cry, and you gave your chaperone a heart attack. What is wrong with you? And Carol's like, first of all, I don't have a chaperone, so stop calling her that. Second of all, Zosha's going to be fine. Thanks for asking. And third of all, and she's like, why do you do such things? Are you mentally unsound? And Carol's like, third of all, I learned something important. Laxmi, I think that there may be a way to fix. And she's like, you do not ever make my son cry again. And she hangs up. And then this dude walking by pushing a cart. And she's like, hey, if Miss Sunshine asks for my phone number again, you tell her to pound sand. But he doesn't reply. He just keeps walking. And she goes to Zosha's room. There's a nurse in there. And Carol's like, she's going to be all right, isn't she? And they're like, she's going to be fine. And she walks out without like looking at Carol or anything. And then in the waiting area, she takes a seat cushion to use as a pillow, and she lies down like in this padded bench. And then like it's weird because this dude outside like looks at her like through a window. Others are moving about, and then it's like, wait, are they all leaving? So they're moving patients. It's like a mass exodus. They're like walking in like lines, like two lines, and ambulances are coming. People are getting on buses and stuff like that. Then it's kind of like a time lapse. The day shifts. Carol's still sleeping, so it goes from day to night, and she's oblivious to what just happened. She wakes up. She goes to Zosha's room, and her bed's empty. And she looks down the hall, and she's like, hello. She walks past like other rooms are all empty, and she's like, is anybody here? And she picks up a phone, and then there's like, hello, Carol. And she's like, where did everybody? This is a recording. At the tone, you can leave a message to request anything you might need. We'll do our best to provide it. Our feelings for you haven't changed, Carol. But after everything that's happened, we just need a little space. Beep. So she hangs up. She goes to a rooftop and she sees like the freeway with a bunch of cars like leaving. And there's no like other traffic in the area around. And she's like, oh, come on. And like then there's like, she looks like in this other direction. There's like cars, like they're all like driving away. She's like, are you fudging kidding me? And she's like, fine. And she yells, good riddance. It's like, fudge you. And then we see the timer, 8 days, 22 hours, 36 minutes, 31 seconds. So Carol drives the squad car home, and then she like writes something. She puts some makeup on. She sets up her camcorder. She puts in a new SD card. She sits on a sofa. She looks at like what she wrote on her notepad. Then she starts recording. She's like, to my 12 fellow survivors, greetings. I'm Carol Sturka. Some of you know me. Some of you I've yet to meet. But if you're still one of us, then this message is for you. There is a way to undo this situation, to turn the world back to the way it's supposed to be. How do I know this? Because earlier today, these afflicted people, these others, they basically told me so themselves. Because guess what? They can't lie, which is yet another thing I've discovered. This alien virus, or whatever it is, it doesn't allow them to do that. So, what is the solution exactly? That they didn't tell me. But they so resisted telling me that everybody suddenly burst into tears worldwide, apparently, which I know upset at least one of you. And then after that, they completely abandoned me here in the city I live, leaving me here all alone, which says to me, I'm on the right track. Now, I realize some of you think the world might be better off the way it is, with all the newfound peace, love, and understanding. Enjoy that opinion. Relish it, because it may be the last one you ever possess. And when the day comes that you have peace and love forced upon you, who knows? Maybe in that last fleeting moment, you might just realize you treasured your individuality. Please, let's work together, the 13 of us, because it's going to take everything we've got. But these people need saving. We owe it to humanity. Call me anytime, day or night. Good luck and Godspeed. She puts the SD card like in a padded envelope. She picks up her phone. Hello, Carol. This is a recording. Blah, 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 blah. Beep. And she's like, it's Carol. I made a video. You're not going to like it. However, I want you to make 12 copies and distribute them to all the other people like me. And for those that don't speak English, I want you to subtitle what I say word for word. I certainly can't force you to do this. However, you doing it would please me. And I know you're into that. And conversely, if you don't do it, I can't be held responsible for the biblically poopy mood in which I will no doubt find myself. So I'm going to leave it outside on the curb by a rock, and I'll stay far, far away because God knows you need your space. So she puts it out there, and she kind of sits like outside the front door, like waiting, and there's like nothing. There's no sign of anyone. But then you hear a noise, and a drone flies over, picks up the package, flies away. Inside, she takes out some like whiskey or something like that. She thinks twice, and then she just like eats like a frozen meal. She puts a pillow on her bed, and then she lies there. And I think this is the first time, maybe, I don't know if this is the first time she's been alone, like in her bed, because maybe she slept downstairs since Holland died. She gets up, she goes downstairs, opens the blinds, and she sees some dogs in the backyard. And she grabs a golf club, and she turns on the light. She's like, hey, and she starts banging, get out of here. And she listens, she opens the door slowly. Her trash has been like scattered, they knocked it over. She picks up the phone, recording again. And she's like, I want the lights back on, all of them, everywhere. Now. So she goes back to bed. She lies there. She hesitates, and then she reaches over and grabs like Helen's sleep mask. So because she has like all the lights on, and outside you see like the city lights start turning on. Next day she cleans up the garbage in the backyard. She gets a recording. She's like, I need my trash picked up. She hangs up, and then her phone rings. She's like, hello? Hello, Carol. This is a recording. We can pick up your trash as long as it's bagged. And each bag weighs 17 pounds or less. Please remove all bags from the bin and place them on a curb a minimum distance of 2 feet apart. Thank you. So she goes outside, takes the bag out of her bin. She like shakes it to kind of gauge like how heavy it is. She decides just to leave it on the curb. She stands back and waits. A drone comes. It tries lifting, but it's like struggling. And then as it starts like trying to fly off, it gets tangled on the lamppost, the street light, and then the bag just like rips open and spills. So she drives and she puts a bag in a park garbage can or somewhere. She's not sure what to do with she also is like trying to throw away the metal dish, the food dome thing. And then she lifts up the recycling lid can, and she sees there's like some empty cartons of milk at the bottom. So she puts a serving thing inside, and then she looks back at the can. She goes and she sees like more milk cartons. She goes to a dumpster nearby, lots of milk cartons. She tries reaching for one. She falls into the dumpster, all milk cartons. And she's like, you mofos really love your milk. She looks at one, so like whole milk, vitamin A and D, Duke City Dairy. So, and it's like local. So she drives over to it. She goes inside. She looks around. She hears something, but then after a bit, she's like, hello? She finds some crows in this room filled with like some sort of grain or something, some white stuff. So then she goes back home. She drags one of the sacks of the stuff, because there's like all these sacks or whatever. And then at her hot tub, there's like a pH tester and like a drinking water test strips or something like that. She makes another video. Greetings, fellow survivors. Carol Sturka here with an update. Here where I live, Albuquerque, New Mexico, they drink this like it's going out of style. She holds up a milk carton. These are little milk cartons, the kind we give children in elementary schools, back when we had elementary schools, and children. As you can see, they seem to come in all kinds of flavor, plain, chocolate, strawberry, and so. But the thing is, it's not milk in any of them. It's this strange liquid. And she holds up a glass, and it looks like maybe like cooking oil, or it's almost like a light kind of whiskey color. And they make in this local dairy facility in my town. Well, past tense. In this dairy, they make this by mixing water into this white powdery stuff, whatever that is. And then the resulting liquid is all they seem to consume. It's like, look around where you live. I'll bet that they're manufacturing this in every city around the world. Everywhere that there's a spare dairy or bottling factory. Maybe where you are, it doesn't come in a carton. Maybe it comes in a can. But either way, it's this. And she holds up the glass again. So what is this? What does it do to them when they drink it? Could it be that this is how they're all staying connected? So here's what I know so far. It does not smell like anything, but it's got this weird texture. And she like sticks a finger and a thumb, and she like kind of rubs them on, in front of the camera. So kind of like an olive oil, but thinner. That probably means something, and I've got no idea what makes it this color, amber, straw colored. And I tested the pH, and it's a 7.1, which means she like looks, it's neutral. Well, basically it's neutral. Know what else is neutral? Celery and water. So yeah, and it does not contain chlorine. Anybody listening out there? Huh? How about you? U12. Any response? Are you even getting these? Because how to fudge would I know? So she gets up and she deletes it. She starts over. Greetings, fellow survivors. Carol Sturka here with an update. So then we don't see the rest of her, like what she does, but she sets the SD card in the envelope out by the curb again. A drone comes. The other one's still like hanging by the light post. It's like it's stuck there now. So the envelope's picked up. She goes inside, and then the dogs head towards her house, and they like hop the fence. So inside, she pours a drink. She still has like the handcuff on her wrist, and she hears the dogs. She grabs a golf club, and she sees them. They're like digging in Helen's grave. So she goes out there yelling, and they just kind of look at her, and they start snarling. So she like curses, and she goes inside, and then out the front. She tries like taking the shotgun out of the squad card, but it's locked, so she can't get it loose. She ends up like driving away with the lights on, like the sirens, and then she circles around. She smashes through the fence, drives like over the grave with the lights and sirens on, and all the dogs run. So in the morning, she's sleeping in the car. The lights are still flashing, and she looks like at the shotgun. There's a little button behind that like opens the lock. So she's like still kind of sleeping. She reaches over, finds the button, and it's like a lock. So she looks at the car keys. She knows that a small one, it would fit in on the cuffs. So she goes to this building materials place, and she puts some stone slabs in the trunk. Like the rear end of the squad car is practically dragging. It's like sparking on the road. She starts covering up the grave. She extends it like way past the grave, so they can't just like dig around. And it takes her like all day because it's like nighttime. Inside, she does some like painting. She makes like a sign for Helen. She stands outside, then just checks it out, observes her what she did. She goes inside, has a drink. She spills the powder stuff when she sits on the sofa. Then she sees like a barcode on the bag. So she goes to Sprout with like an empty bag. She scans it, input error. She looks around the store, sees a big bag of dog food that's like the same size, like on the sack beneath the label, and there's like the same barcode. So she looks at the address in the bag. It's like Agrajet. So she drives there, and again, it's local, conveniently. So one of the loading bay, like dock doors, whatever, is like open, so she can crawl underneath, convenient. She looks around with a flashlight. She struggles to open this like big metal door. She goes inside, and there's ingredients on the shelves, and she looks under the tarp. She stares for a bit, and then she gasps and she covers her mouth. And that's where it ends. It's like, wait, what? So what does she see in there? I have no idea. But yeah, so what is this powder? I mean, are they grinding people up? Why would it make that color? I have no idea. But this is interesting. But it's weird that they leave her alone. I get that they're ticked off at her, but still, because like if she gets hurt, like if she gets injured, there's no one around. I mean, how close is the nearest person? And the fact that they're picking stuff up with drones, so yeah, she really ticked them off, I guess.
Okay, welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 6, In the Name of the Father. So this was interesting because it starts off at Juniper Hill Asylum, but it's in black and white, 1935. So there's a girl sleeping. Nurse tells her to and then takes her out of her room. She says she doesn't want to go. But then the closed caption says English Kirsch. I'm like, wait, what? So I didn't realize how old Ingrid is. I mean, she didn't look that old before. And I also didn't realize it was Madeline Stowe that was playing Ingrid. she's like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of down there. So she holds her hand out to take her down some stairs, asks the girl what her name is. So she doesn't even know. And the girl said her name is, I think it was like Mabel. And so they go down to like the boiler room level. And she's like, so Mabel, is this where the clown told you to meet? She's like, you can tell me. And the girl like looks around. And then you see a floating red balloon. So even though everything is in black and white, the balloon is in red. And they just kind of like watch it float, and it goes like into this sort of like back room. And then Mabel gets like, she's like scared and whine, and Ingrid's like, it's okay, it's just a balloon. And then you see an arm reach out for it. So obviously it's Pennywise. And then he's standing in a door frame. The balloon is covering his face, and he slowly lowers the balloon, and you can see the little tiny like pinprick lit eyes. And it goes into the intro from there. So it cuts to Will's in a daze. His dad's talking to him. Says that he's like, I could have killed you down there, but instead I had to send my best friend home in a box. And he's like, because you disobeyed me. And this is where it's like, okay, Leroy Hanlon. He was a decent character for the most part, but here he's blaming the fact that he shot his best friend on Will because he was there. And when you're the one having visions and you pull the trigger. So he says, because he disobeyed him. And Will's like, come on, Dad. He's like, that's not fair. He's like, you know what killed Uncle Polly? Because it was Pennywise. And he's like, what I know is I have a son that has no GD sense. And Charlotte's in there. She's like, okay, Leroy. And he's like, Charlotte, I'm sorry. You have to stay out of this. He's like, you were not there. This thing could change its shape like it could see inside my head. And she's like, how is that possibly? He's like, I don't know. But I do know that these weren't mind games. This was real. This was solid. It's that it killed trained soldiers. And Will's like, Dad, I know what it can do. It's come after us a bunch of times, and it's not going to stop. He's like, well, it can't touch you out here outside of Derry. So from now on, you don't leave your room without my permission. Do you understand? He's like, no. And Charlotte's like, baby, like, mind your daddy now. And Will starts like walking out, and Lee grabs his arm, and Will shrugs it off, and he's like, no. He's like, you always told me that a man should never hide from trouble. That's what makes life count, are the friends that you make and the risks that you take. He's like, well, I've got friends now, Dad. He's like, I got friends and they need me, and I'm going to be there for them just like you would. Lee like raises his voice, like, you are not me. And then Will's like, yeah, I know that. I know I'm not you, because I would never let my friends die. And then Lee, bam, it's like, I don't know if he slugged him or if he slapped him. And Will goes like, he goes flying down. And Charlotte's like, Leroy. And Will's like sobbing. And Leroy's just like stands for a second. And quietly, he's like, I'm sorry, son. And Will's like, it's gotten to you too. It's gotten your head. And Leroy's like, he's like, no, come here, son. He's like, get away from me. And he like leaves and he slams the door. And Leroy's just like left her standing. And then he like looks over at Charlotte. So it's just like, wow. So Will, he left. He rushes on his bike. He goes past like the guard's gate. And we see there's like lots of missing kid signs, but some guy's putting up a wanted signs for Hank. And then you see like walking around town, there's some good old boys, with shotguns just walking around in broad daylight. At the hangout, Ronnie stares at one of the wanted signs. She's looking at it. The others are looking at the dagger thing that Lily has. Lily tells him that it was like under the water when the clown was coming for her. It started to glow, and he looked at it almost like he was afraid. And Marge's like surprised or maybe hopeful. Lily says that he backed away and then he disappeared. And Will asks, he's like, can I see it? But Will like pulls back, and she's like, I'll hold it. And Will's like, they look like hieroglyphs. And then he has to explain that, ancient civilizations have them, because Rich said, he's like, oh, I thought those were Egyptian. Lily's like, well, whatever it is, if this thing is scared of it, maybe we can use it. Go back down there, all of us together, and then kill it. Then Ronnie turns around and finally joins the conversation. She's like, you really expect us to listen to you? You're the one who dragged us down there in the first damn place. We almost died, and now you want us to go back? She's like, you are crazy. And Lily's like, what'd you call me? And her hands like grip like the dagger thing, like real tightly. And Marge notices. She's like, Lily? And she's like, just give it. And then she's like, don't touch it. And the others like stare at her. And she's like, you think I wanted this? If I could go back, I'd never have gone to your house in the first place. He's like, you were up in the booth. You didn't see. I was the only one who made it out of that theater. And for Maddie to come back and tell us that there was a chance that Phil was still alive, it's like, what was I supposed to do? And Ronnie's like, if you hadn't come to my house that day, they probably would still be alive, which is ridiculous. Because obviously it's going after kids. And she's like, and the cops wouldn't be hunting my daddy like some kind of animal. And Lily's like, all I wanted was to help you. A lot of good it did. It's like, I wish I never tried. And Rich quietly, he's like, guys. Ronnie's like, and I wish I never met you, Lily Bainbridge. And Rich is like, can't you see? This is what it wants. Turn us against each other. And Ronnie's like, they should have never let you out of Juniper Hill. And Ronnie just like walks past Lily and leaves. And the others are silent. Will's like, well, I'll go make sure she's okay. And then Marge is like, she didn't mean it. And Lil's like, don't, just leave me alone. Back at the base, Halloran walks into their like club place. One of his buddies is like, oh, where you been? And Dix, he just wants a drink. And he gets a little freaked because he looks at one of the guys because maybe he probably saw something. And then he like looks down at his feet and it's like wet. And then he's like, the icebox is leaking. So you got to fix that. It's like the floorboard's rotten. He grabs a bottle of whiskey. He's like, I'm going to finish this off and catch a couple Z's in the back. And one guy's like, you can't. He's like, we got something we got to talk about. And Dick's like, tell me. So then Will goes after Ronnie. And, she's still ranting. She's like, can you believe her? It's like she won't stop until, one of us is dead. It's like, we barely made it out of those tunnels alive. Now she's trying to surface up that thing again. It's like, she must have snapped her cap. And she's like, you agree with me, right? And Will's like, yeah, definitely. And Ronnie's like, you think I went too far? And Will's like, I mean, and she's like, maybe I did. But, I'm just tired. I'm tired of being scared. And Will's like, I know, me too. And she hugs him, and he like hugs her back. And then she looks at him like in the eyes. And it's like, wait, are they about to kiss? But then they're interrupted by a car horn. It's Will's mom. She's like, William Dubois Handlin. She's like, get your disobedient behind this car right now. And Ronnie's like, Dubois? And then his mom's like, you too, little miss. And she's like, me? Why? And then they get in the car, and Charlotte's like, y'all think you're all grown? Mm-hmm. So Dick and his buddies looking at the back room. Hank is there. Dick's like, is that who I think it is? He's like, he's on posters all over. And, one of them says that Mrs. Hanlon asked if they could hide him there. He's like, I think that you're inviting a whole lot of herd up in here. So then one guy, Reggie, I think, he's like, she says that she's got a plan to get him out of town. She just needs a couple of days to get it all straight. And he's like, what do you expect me to do? Turn him over to some lynch mob? And Hank's like, I'll stay out of sight. It's like, I promise, sir. He's like, I won't leave this room, please. And Dick's like, I don't need this poop right now. And then the door opens to Charlotte with Will and Ronnie. And Ronnie's like, where is he? Daddy. Big hug. Dick just kind of like rolls his eyes. Will smiles and he looks at his mom. He's just like miserable looking after what he went through. And Hank tells Ronnie that, no one knows about this place except for a few colored airmen from the base. Dick starts walking out. Charlotte stops him. And she's like, hey, thank you for doing this. He's like, leave me out of this. Then Ronnie asks Hank how they found him. He says Mrs. Hanlon and a friend. He's like, it's a long story. It's like, what's important is that they're together and they're going to stay together. So Will looks at them hugging. He starts like thinking. Mom's like, you want to talk about what happened this morning? Just shakes his head. And she's like, it's going to be all right. Back at the hangout, Marge is looking in this like first aid kit, mirror thing. And, she looks at her bandage and then she's surprised because she sees Rich behind her in the mirror. And she quickly puts her glasses back on. And she's like, oh, you scared me. And he apologizes. He says, he's got one of those little wooden glider planes. He says he still hasn't landed one on Main Street. And then but he's like, do you want to try? And she says that she has to redress her eye. And the tape is hard to take off. And he asked her if she wants some help. He's like, I was a Weebelo for a couple years. So I guess that's like a Boy Scout or something like that. So he says he knows the trick is to taking a bandage off without it hurting. But without a word, he just sets his plane down and he grabs a chair for her. Then, he looks at the bandage and he kind of like, he licks his thumb and she stops him. She's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, if you wet it a little, it slides right off. She's like, well, not with your spit. He's like, well, saliva is actually, has antiseptic properties. And she's like, I don't think that's true. Rich is like, well, who knows? He licks his thumb again. He's like, science is always changing. He's like, that's what Will says. He's like, you should hear him talk about it. So he like wets both ends of the bandage and he like takes it off. He's like, easy peasy. And he looks at her eye and she like looks at him and she's like, it's awful, isn't it? And he's just like staring like closely. He's like, no, it's the coolest thing I've ever seen. He's like, keep staring. And she gets up. She's like, I can handle it from here. Thanks. So then she puts like some ointment on her eye. Rich just kind of stands around. And he's like, that was crazy before, huh? Lily and Ronnie like really went at each other. She's like, yeah. And Rich is like, yeah, I just get a bad feeling like this thing's not done with us. And if we have to face it alone, then he's like, what if Lily's right? What if that thing that she found, what if it really is the only way we can stop it? It's like, don't we have a better chance if we're together? And Marge like nods and says that, she's not the one that needs convincing. And, Ronnie is stubborn. So she takes off her glasses again. She starts to get a bandage ready. And then he stops her and he's like, I got it. He puts it on carefully. And then he grabs the airplane and he's like, here goes nothing. So he like runs, throws it. And then it actually like goes into like a sewer pipe. So I guess Pennywise has a plane to play with now. I mean, Dick is somewhere like drinking his whiskey. There's a knock at the door. So he's like going to the bunk rooms, whatever. I don't know if it's the same one that Hanlon was in when he was attacked. So Hanlon, he's at the door. He walks in. Dick salutes him. He's still like sitting on the floor. He doesn't get up or anything. And then Leroy goes to the window and he opens the blinds. And they're like too bright for Dick. And it's like, is that really necessary? So Leroy's like, where you been? And Dick offers Hanlon a drink, but Hanlon puts an envelope on the bed. He said, these new orders from Shaw. And he's like, dead soldiers or not? He's like, he's still on the hunt for those pillars. And Dick's like, makes sense. He's like, but if I was Shaw, I would stop that poop before he... And then he sees like a soldier with like his head half blown off, like standing there. And Hanlon like turns around like to see what Dick is looking at. But Dick quietly, he's like, I'll fudging look at it later. And he's talking about the new orders. Then Hanlon asks him, like, what happened down there? Dick's like, I think we pissed it off. And Hanlon, he's like, I meant you. He's like, you stayed in those tunnels for hours. Like, what happened? And Dick's like, this thing I got, like, points to his head. He's like, when I was little, let me see things. And Leroy's like, okay, what kind of things? And Dick's like, dead ones. He's like, my grandma had some of what I got, not as strong, but she had some too. And she realized I wasn't sleeping and taught me this trick. Said, Dick, think of a great big old box and imagine putting all the things that you don't want to see no more inside the box. So I did. I took all them dead things, threw them in the box in my mind, and I shoved that GD lid on tight. He's like, I was 9. He's like, I ain't seen them since. Till yesterday when the GD thing, it forced itself into my head. He like ripped that lid off and laughed as it all came spilling out. So Leroy's listening, and then he goes and he sits on the bed next to Dick. He's like, are there any here right now? Like, can you see them? And Dick just gives like a little nod. So Dick's like, he's like, my grandma used to tell me that the dead, they always wander back to where they died. He's like, look like, 1 or 2 of them met their maker right here. And Leroy's like, do they talk to you? And he's like, no. He's like, long as I don't regard them, they don't even notice I'm here. But if I open my mouth, like the voices, they don't ever stop. And they know things we don't, things the living aren't meant to know. And Leroy's like, what? Like, how to find what we're looking for? And Dick's like, did you hear a word I just said? And Hannah's like, look, I just buried my wingman, okay? My best friend. And I was kill my own son. So no disrespect, but we both got skin in the game. And I know it's asking a lot, but at the end of the day, you're an airman, first class of the United States military. When poop gets real, it's a job. If this helps complete the mission, just do it this one time. And then you can put it all back, just like it was before. And Dick's like, okay, so what happens if I can't shove it all away like before? It's like, you don't know, do you? You you don't give a fudge. Either way, all this poop is about what you want. And Hannah's like, it's about doing what's right. And Dick's like, oh, get the fudge out of here with that. He's like, you know what? Shaw's calling. Needs his boot shines, you fudging bootlicker. And Hanlon's like, man, you don't talk to me like that. I'm your superior officer. And he's like, I don't give a fudge. He's like, get out. Get out. And Hanlon like sits there for a second. He gets up. He's like, now you think about whether you want to do your sworn duty or get dragged out of here in handcuffs. And he's like, get some rest. And see, again, it's like, Leroy, man, you're not my favorite character. Not that he ever was, but it's do your duty. Like, oh, the government got to find some evil spirit monsters to try to throw at the Russians, even though it's going to get people killed. So Hanlon returns to his quarters, whatever. He calls out to Charlotte, and she's in the bedroom. She's like packing a suitcase. He's like, what's going on? He's like, where's Will? And she's like, probably with his friends, who are about the only people he can trust right now. And you know what? I don't blame him. And he's like, okay, hold on a minute. And she's like, no, you hold on a minute. It's like, you put hands on our boy. And he's like, I know. It's like, and I'm sorry, Char, but you know that wasn't me. It's like, that wasn't my head was just, it was all messed up because of what happened down in the sewer and what happened to Polly. And she goes and she gives him a hug. She's like, here, he says, it's like, I'm sorry, Char. It's like, I'm just trying to protect this GD country. And I'm like, oh, brother. And she's like, or she like pushes away. She's like, this country? And he's like, what? And she's like, you put us in a cage with a GD monster. He's like, I didn't know. He's like, I didn't know that. And she's like, yeah, well, there's a lot you don't know. He's like, wait. He's like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And she's like, Hank Grogan's at the black spot. And he's like, how do you wind up there, Charlotte? And she's like, I put him there. And she's like, She's like, yell, scream, stomp, do whatever you need to do. Won't make a lick of difference. Tomorrow morning, I'm getting him out of town safe. And then Will and I are headed back to Shreveport with or without you. And he's like, I have a mission to finish, Charlotte. I can't just walk away from that. And she's like, well, then I guess you'll join us when you can find a time to make things right. He's like, can't you see? That's what I'm trying to do here. And she's like, not with me, not with your son. And he says nothing. She closes the suitcase and just walks past him. Then at school, Lily sits in class. She's thinking about Pennywise. He says that she convinced everyone to come see him because she's such a good friend. And she's actually like holding the dagger in her lap. So I'm like, is she dreaming? And then you hear like Lily's father's voice. He's like, but such a bad daughter. And the teacher tells the class to get their textbooks out. But it's weird that they have desks where you can put books and stuff inside because they have lockers. So you don't usually have both of those. So she opens her desk and there's a head in there. I don't know if it was supposed to be her dad's head. And it kind of like, moves a little, like, that doesn't really jump at her because it's just a head, but it has like tentacles and stuff. And she falls out of her seat and she like drops the dagger thing. And then the head's like, who's going to help you now, crazy? And she picks up the dagger and she holds that at her desk. And it's like, you'll die if you try it. And it like cackles. And she's like, stay away. She slams the desk shut. And the teacher barks at her, Lily Bainbridge, sit back down this very instant. And the student, but it's like, the teacher doesn't say anything about her having like this, like sharp, it's not really a dagger, but it's like, yeah, she doesn't even say anything about that. So, the kids are laughing. And so then she just looks around and she walks out of classroom with the dagger in her hand. And the teacher's like, where do you think you're going, young lady? So at lunch, Rich apparently told Marge and Ronnie about her dad, about Ronnie's dad. And Will said that his mom took them there yesterday. Ronnie hasn't left his side since. And he said that he'll take them there later, but they can't tell anyone. Marge's like, you think we can change your mind? And he's like, I don't know, but we have to try. He's like, I could barely sleep last night. And when I brushed my teeth, I thought I heard voices. And they're like in the pipes. And so Marge is like, you too? And Rich is like, I wouldn't even go in there to pee. And she's like, so what, you just held it in? He's like, are you kidding? So I couldn't do that if I even do that if I tried. He's like, I just put it. And she looks at him. And he's like, never mind, doesn't matter. And she's like, oh, come on. please. He's like, you're the only person I've shown my oozing eye scab to. So Rich is like, fine. He's like, I put it in a jar next to my bed and I emptied it in the morning. And Marge is like, huh. In medieval times, they called it a chamber pot. Everyone peed in them, even knights. And they also fought in duels and rescued fair maidens. So Rich smiles, and then he remembers, like, oh, hey. He's like, I got you something. He takes out an eye patch. He's like, I dug it out of my attic. Supposedly it belonged to a corsair my ancestors knew back in Cuba. It's like, I figured, I don't know, you might like it. And he like watches closely as she takes it, and then she smiles, and she chuckles. She's like, I love it. And she takes off her glasses, and she puts it on like over the bandage. She's like, I always wanted to be a pirate. She's like, look at us, a pirate and a knight. And Rich is like, guess we got next Halloween all figured out, huh? And she chuckles. She's like, it's a date. And then his face kind of like goes into shock. And she realized what she said. And she's like, oh. And Rich's like, no, I know. And she's like, I didn't mean to say. And he's like, I didn't think you meant. And she's like, sorry. And then Patty, mean girl number one, she's like, hey, Margie, if I didn't know any better, I think you're avoiding us. And she's like, oh, hi, Patty. And then she's like, everyone's still talking about how you escaped the jaws of death. And mean girl two, it's like, at least Loony Lily didn't stab both your eyes out. And Marge's like, that's not what happened. And she's like, well, why don't you tell us about it over lunch at our table? Unless you'd rather stay here with Ricky Ricardo and the other freaks. So one, that's racist, calling Rich Ricky Ricardo. And then she's calling, because there's other people at the table, like at the other end. So like Marge looks at Rich, and he's just like looks back. And Marge looks at the rest of the table, the freaks looking at her. Then she looks back at Patty. She stands. And she's like, Patty? And Patty's like, Margaret? And Marge is like, I am a freak. And she pulls down the eye patch, and she's like, rah! She like growls, and all three patty cakes like scream and cringe back. And she's like, rah, rah. And then there's like more screaming, and Patty's like, stop. And then Rhonda, one of the girls, she like starts choking or gasping, and Patty's like, just breathe. And she's like, oh my God. And then Rhonda starts like vomiting or something. The students are exclaiming. Marge like proudly sits and puts her glasses on without the patch. And then Patty just looks over at her, and Marge smiles and takes a bite out of her lunch. And then she looks at Rich, who's like smiling. Then we see Will. He's riding with Rich and Marge. So Marge is on the back of Rich's bike. So they're riding out to the officers' hangout, and Will says that they just have to convince Ronnie to fight this thing. And Rich is like, quick questions. He's like, what if she says no? And Will's like, say a quick prayer. And Rich is like, I don't know. Last time I said a prayer, my dead Tio almost killed us. So he's like, well, don't say a prayer then, or something like that. So they go inside. There's lots of folk in there now. Will takes him to the back room. He like knocks. Ronnie's like, who's there? And he's like, it's Will. So she opens the door a crack, and she sees like Rich and Marge. Then it cuts to Lily riding her bike, and she goes to Ingrid's house. And there's like this freaky neighbor in the next yard, just like creepily like staring at her. So she like opens the door, and she just like walks in, because there's like no one there. There's like music coming from upstairs. So she's like, Mrs. Kirsch, and she goes up, and she like goes like to I don't know if it's an attic or whatever, it's just a top room. There's like a photo album on a desk. It looks like wedding photos, family photos, whatever. And she just kind of smiles, sees all this. And then there's a photo of this dude with a big forehead. And she looks closely at it. And she sees him with a little girl. Obviously, it's Pennywise. And we saw this in, was it Part 1? So she's there, and the floorboards are creaking. Ingrid walks up, and she's like, Lily, what are you doing up here? And she's like, the door was open. And she's like, oh, it's fine. I just wasn't expecting anyone. Are you okay? And Lily's like, I'm all right. It's just, we went down to the tunnels. And she's like, oh, Lily, I begged you not to go. And Lily's like, we didn't have a choice. And Maddie, she's like sobs. She runs to Ingrid and hugs her. Ingrid's like, it's okay. She's like, you're in the right place now. Lily starts looking at the other stuff in the attic. And there's this picture of this girl, but behind it, there's a picture of a clown with like a fake hair cap, but the face is definitely Pennywise. And Ingrid's like, there. Oh, Lily, you're safe here with me. And then, Lily's looking at the photo, whatever. She's thinking about the other photo. And Ingrid's like, Lily, what's the matter? And Lily looks over, and Ingrid's like, have you seen him? And she doesn't say anything. She's like, you saw him. It's like, oh, my word. She chuckles. She's like, you did. Oh, sweetheart, you did it. And she chuckles. She's like, you did it. Lily starts backing away. It's like, oh, Lily, of course it was you. Oh, I know you don't understand. And then Lily sees like a wig and like a circus sign off to the side. She's like, you brought him back. And she's like, it's my old costume. Lily looks closer at the wig, and it's what was most likely in the photo in the cemetery. So when they saw that clown in the mausoleum, and she turns and looks back at Ingrid. She's like, you followed us. And she's like, yes. I thought he might appear, that he might appear that night in the cemetery. You kids were on your bike, and I was worried that I might miss him if he showed himself to you. Lily's like, so that was you? And she doesn't say anything. She's like, but why? Ingrid approaches Lily, and she takes her hand, and she crouches down. She's like, my father was a carnival performer. He called himself Pennywise the Dancing Clown. I adored him, and he was taken from me. The carnival moved on, but I stayed in Derry. I suppose you could say I felt drawn. So then we get the black and white flashback. Ingrid's as a nurse at Juniper. She hears a doctor talking to Mabel, and he says that her parents are very concerned. Mabel says that they don't believe her about Pennywise, and he says that he wants to show. Mabel's like, he wants to show me his carnival. He's here in the pipes, and he tells me to come down to the basement at night. And Ingrid's just like listening as she's like folding some sheets or something. And the doctor's like, there's no such things as clowns in pipes. Clowns live at the circus. And Ingrid like stares at Mabel from like the hall. And then it cuts to Mabel. This is what we saw before. She's cowering at Ingrid's side in the basement. The balloon floats back. Pennywise grabs it, and then he pops into the doorway. And Ingrid looks. He pulls the balloon down slowly. Like pipes creak, air hisses, and then Pennywise, he like darts forward, hackling, golden eyes. So his eyes are in color, and he's like, "Hello, Mabel." He's like, "You finally came," and he bends down like closer, and she's like hiding behind Ingrid, like whimpering, and he like slowly like hands the balloon over to her, and she takes it. He's like, and you brought a friend. He like laughs maniacally. Then he opens his mouth. He shows all his teeth and he growls. Mabel screams. Ingrid like jerks back, takes Mabel away. Pennywise laughs. Ingrid tells Mabel's like, don't look back. They're running. But then, of course, Mabel trips and falls. Ingrid, at first I thought she got in an elevator, but I guess they took the stairs, right? She gets to the door, and she's like starting to close the door, and Pennywise like cackling, and he's kind of doing this like weird run. It's almost like he's waddling, and he's like stops, and Mabel cries out, "Help!" Ingrid's like, I don't know what she's trying to do, because this is why I thought she was in the elevator. It's like, is the door closing automatically, or then the door's like stuck, but she finally gets it shut, and then Pennywise slowly walks forward, like towards Mabel, and then she's like banging on the door, and Ingrid. She can see like her hand underneath the door. She's like reaching, and then she's like, "Leave her alone." She's like, "Oh no, please." And he smiles, and then he growls, and then it's like, and Mabel screams. Ingrid like takes her hands, like she's holding her hand on the door. There's like sounds of bone crunching, like flesh squelching. Pennywise, you hear more chomping. Flesh rips, more crunching, liquid gushing, and then red blood starts seeping like under the door. She crouches down and she like backs away. So this is when I was like, oh, she's not in an elevator. And then she hears like carnival music playing, and she starts like looking up. She stands to look at the window in the door, and then a hand like reaches up, and then it's her dad. It's Pennywise, no makeup. He's like, "Pumpkin, it's me, Papa. Oh, how I've missed you all these years." Like, no, don't be scared. I can explain everything. Just open the door and let me in. Her eyes are like full of tears, and she starts moving towards the door, and then she's like stepping in the blood. He's like, "Open it, let me in. Everything's going to be all right." So she slides it open, and she stands there, and then it fades to the present, And she says to Lily, she's like, it was him, different perhaps, changed by whatever he'd been through or whatever, wherever he'd been, but it was him, like all the same. She's like, a daughter knows, and Ingrid's like crying with joy. She's got tears. She's like, suddenly I felt whole again for the first time since that awful day. But every time he would return, his shadow would push my father away or something like that. And she's like, I had to find a way to free him. So I did what I had to do to see him again. And then Lily like jerks her hands from her grasp. And she's like, if he could just see me once more as his periwinkle, remind him of the love that we shared, I know that he'll be able to break free. And Lily's like backing away. She's like at the desk. And she's like, please don't hurt me. And Ingrid's like, hurt you? I would never let anything hurt you. And then Lily's like, and my friends? And Ingrid's like, oh, Lily, you above all people should understand. And Lily's starting to reach behind her, but I thought she's like looking for, reaching for something on her desk. And Ingrid's like, if you could see your father again, hold him, be his little girl, wouldn't you do everything you could to make that happen? So Lily's actually like reaching in her satchel, and she has like a look of disdain on her face. She's like, my father is dead. And Ingrid's like, oh, you know what they say about Derry, dear. No one who dies here ever really dies. And she like extends her hand. She's like, come with me tonight. Let me show you. And then Lily pulls out the dagger and like slashes her hand. And she's like, Lily, Lily. And, she moves towards the stairs. Ingrid like reaches out. And then we see Lily on her bike. And she screams. And she screams again. There's like a blood smear on her back. So I guess Ingrid like, reached out. Marge says to Ronnie, if they're going to go after this thing, it needs to be all of them. And she's like, She's like, I'm not going anywhere until I know my dad is safe. And Will's like, hey, your dad, he's going to be fine. Nobody knows that he's here. And Ronnie's like, I'm not getting separated again. You guys do what you want. It's like, I'm staying. And she like walks away. Rich is like, she's stubborn. And Will's like, yeah, well, so am I. So he goes after her. Music starts up. People are getting ready to dance. Marge is like, oh, maybe we should wait outside. And Rich is like, nah. He's like, we're good here. And he sits like on a pool table, so like watch them dance. Will says to Ronnie and Hank, he's like, if this thing Lily found in the sewers really scares it, like she said, it's a chance that it can stop it, like for good. But we think we have a better chance if we're all together. And Ronnie's like, it's like, enough. You really expect my dad to let me go back down there? And he's like, no, you're not going anywhere. But I get it. He's worried about you, right? And Will's like, well, yes, sir. But that's not. And he's like, you really care about my daughter, don't you? And Will's like, yes, sir. And Hank's like, we have that in common. He's like, that's why I can't let her go. So what? The two of you been spending a lot of time together then? It's like, Daddy. He's like, hush up now. It's like, you have a new gentleman friend. And he kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, I'm your father. He's like, I should know him a little better. Let me ask you something, William. What's your favorite movie? Meanwhile, at the town bar, like one patron's, he's like, the kitty killer's still out there. He's like, where else could we look? And some said, there's a whole sewer system that he could be hiding in. And they talk about like this other area, this like lot where hobos used to come in or something by the rail yard. And then Clint Bowers, the police chief, he comes in. He's like, he's not there. He's like, I know where he's hiding, and it ain't the rail yards. He's like, a lady called in a tip. Didn't leave her name, but considering the name of the place that she was pointing at, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet. This dude, Al, he's like, you going to arrest him? And Bowers like, well, there's a problem. When the tip came in, I was cleaning out my desk because the deputy mayor just relieved me of my duties. Seems they lost confidence in my ability to serve and protect. So no, I couldn't even give him a parking ticket. And then this one dude's like, well, what are you telling us for? So then we see that he's like distorted, or just like a distorted background, and he comes out of the room and like into the club. The band's playing, people are dancing. Someone hands him a beer. Rich goes up to this guy like serving drinks, and he asks for like 2 Cokes. couple is like dancing and like grinding. So Rich and Marge are like, what are they doing? And they're like some kind of dancing. Marge thinks that, she's drinking her Coke. She's like, I think there's something wrong with my Coke. And then they talk to the dude. He's like, nah. It's like, you got Air Force Coke. So basically he gave them Cokes with alcohol. And Rich is like, it tastes kind of funny. Dude's like, that's the taste of freedom. And then to Marge, he's like, freedom tastes weird. So Will says that he's talking to Hank. He's like, they played War of the Worlds at the rec center at the base last year. He's like, I like that. And Hank's like, good answer. He's like, you seem like a bright young man, William. He's like, truth is, if anything were to happen to me, it's good to know someone of your character is looking out for my baby girl. And he's like, nothing's going to happen to you or Ronnie, sir. Not on my watch. And Hank smiles. Rich and Marge are still drinking. Marge is kind of smiling, so she's obviously getting tipsy. Then Will comes out, and Rich is like, oh, poop. He's like, not even the old Hanlon charm, huh? And Will's like, I tried. It's like, she won't budge. And Rich is like, that sucks. Then a dude with saxophone comes up to them because Rich has drumsticks in his pocket. He's like, hey, Sticks, you play? And he's like, I don't know, a little. And the guy's like, look, we're about to swing out, but our drummer's a little bit indisposed. And we look, he's like passed out. And he's like, what do you say? You want to sit in? And Marge is like tipsy. She's like, come on. She's like, I've never seen you play before. What's a couple more minutes? And so, of course, he can't say no to her. So then the sax dude, he's like, what are we playing? So he hands him a couple brush sticks. He asks if he knows how to use those. So I guess they play some song. It's Only a Paper Moon. Marge is kind of like dancing a little now. Rich takes out his sticks and he does like a solo. So now he's playing with sticks, even though they wanted him to play with the other one. Marge is kind of like mesmerized. Rich is like going to town. People are cheering. We see Dick. He's still drinking. Ingrid, meanwhile, she puts on her clown outfit. And her hand's like bandaged up, and she puts on a glove over it, and she's got like the big wig on. It's like so weird. And then at the club, there's a couple outside like talking and smoking, and some cars start driving up, and the woman's like, you expecting more company or something like that? They can't see who it is, so the car's like parked, the lights are bright, and the dude's like, hey, you need to turn those lights off or something like that. White dudes come out wearing plastic masks, carrying shotguns, and like they're like Halloween masks, like vampire or whatever. And then the dude's like, he tells the ladies like, get behind me. And then the good old boys with the masks and guns are just standing there, and that's where it ends. So it's like, who would have called that in? Like, who would know that Hank is there? So that's ridiculous. This is gonna get messy. And I don't know if it's on the airbase property, but that's going to be interesting. So that was episode 6. All right, Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake, Season 2, Episode 7, The Wolves Who Wandered. So it starts off at City Gardens LSP. He's sleeping like on a merry-go-round, and then some like pink lights kind of circle around him, and he starts levitating up, and he's like, they're taking me again. The background kind of changes, and then there's this like platform things, and one of the women that was there when he was dreaming of getting tickled appears. He's like, so you're back for another juicy taste from the sweet mango of my body? And she's like, I have an important message. And he's like, oh, for me? And she's like, no. And he's like, what? But this is my encounter. And she's like, you'll know who my words are for when the time is right. And he's like, well, if it's not for me, I don't want it. And she's like, prepare your ear holes. And he screams, like, no. He sticks his fingers in his ears. And then she speaks like indistinctly. And we don't hear the message. It's like inaudible, whatever. And he's like, get out of my headspace, honey. And then he's got tears. He's like, wait. And he wakes up in the real world. And then it's the intro. Then we see Boys Night post the flyer, whatever posted. Someone puts a sticker on top of it. It says DJ Flame set just added. So Fiona's like talking. She's like, with DJ Flame headlining, we're definitely going to make our goal. So she thanks the skating girls for their help. Gary like seems stunned or something, and she tells him not to worry. The sweet spot will be theirs again, soon. Then she asks Marshall if he's okay with playing a shorter set, And he's like, kind of surprised. He's like, oh, yeah, sure. And then he looks across the street. This random lady sees a poster of the boys' night. And she's like, no. And then the skater girl like speeds by, like whoosh, slaps a sticker on there, DJ Flame sticker. And she's like, oh my God, DJ Flame, I've got to tell everyone. Marshall like looks at this like stickers in his hands. Gary goes up to Fiona. He's like, hey Fee. He's like, Marshall has been working really hard on his new songs. And she's like, oh man, he's going to be great. He's going to be a great opener. And Marshall like puts a sticker over his face. At the tree, by the apartment, which is like, Finn and Jake's tree, Huntress is hanging upside down by like one leg or her foot or whatever. She closes her eyes and she sees Spirit Warrior holding, he's at like the bar, like Coach from Cheers. He's holding like a broken like gardening hoe, and the glass on the counters has the flames in there. And he's like, a broken tool seeks to flame. And Huntress says, he's like, is it the heart that's broken? He's like, do I need to burn it to get home? And Spirit, your clues are gray water backwash. And it starts raining like outside the tree. At the mausoleum, there's a giant inflatable DJ like flame like on top. Fionna and Cake are sitting at the top of the steps. And Cake's like, any sign of DJ Flame? And she's like, no, but he knows there's a tech scout scheduled. And Cake's like, okay, well. And Fiona's like, I think he wants me back. I mean, we almost kissed. And Cake's like, but then he ran off? And she's like, yeah. Cake's like, Fee, honey, you tend to interpret things the way you want to. And she's like, you saw his dream. He was all over me. She's like, one thing that's not open interpretation is dreams. And this dude comes out with a clipboard. He asks her to just setting up standard stage package, right? And they need to get out of there in an hour. And she's like, well, Felix, we'll tell him, when he gets here. And she's like, I'm sure he's just running late. Then it's night. Fiona's like trying to call. His phone just rings, his answering machine. And she doesn't leave a message. She's like, he's still not picking up. So she hands the phone back to Cake. And she screams. And she's like, boys' night is in 2 days. Cake tries like calming her, like turns herself into like a hoodie and wraps herself around Fiona. And then like walking out, she's like, Fennel's trying to keep Flame away from me. And Cake's like, who? And she's like, I need to rescue him from that knockoff clutches. And Cake's like, whoa, maybe sleep on that idea? And she's like, what? It's like, I'm sure we can set everything up tomorrow. It's like, you got this. Huntress is sleeping at Cake's. It's like 4:59 a.m. and Fiona's like still awake, like tossing and turning. She's frowning, but then she pictures like Flame and she smiles, and then Fennel like turns around and like giggles, and then she's back to frowning, and then she sees people like booing and throwing things at the stage, and she sees Marshall and Gary are sad. She starts crying, and then Queenie is in like a huge, massive bulldozer plowing like the parking lot, laughing maniacally, and she sits up. She's like, I gotta fix this. So she goes over to Towers where DJ Felix lives, finds his name on the mailbox, goes like pounds on the door, tells him, get out here. Fennel actually opens the door, and she's like, Fiona, and she's like, I knew it. And she walks in. She's like, Felix, where are you? And Fennel's like, he didn't come back. And Fiona's like, what? She's like, I've been waiting up all night. When was last time you saw him? So she thinks about them like almost kissing. She's like, a few days ago? Fennel's like, I've checked everywhere. Slime hasn't seen him either. It's like he disappeared. It's like, I'm so worried about him. It's like, should we call for a manhunt? And then Fiona's like, or a manhuntress? And Fennel's like, I don't know that show. So at Cake, Fiona like barges in with a like fully loaded hot dog. She calls out for Huntress. She sees Cake on the floor with like open cans of tuna and like a paper mache of like Mcron or something like that. And Cake's like, you got dogs without me? And Fennel's with her like eating a hot dog. And Fennel's like, we got hungry. They like gulp. They both finished at the same time. And Fiona's like, is Huntress around? And Cake angrily points. Huntress is sort of like straddling the toilet, like meditating, and the toilet's like full of cat litter. And Fiona's like, you gotta help us find DJ Flame. And Huntress like, I'm not all that invested in the well-being of your former mate. And she's like, please, HW. And she's like, fine, if it gets you out of my zone, let me try something. She like flexes her hands like, and then a plant grows in the palm of her hand. She's like, these will give you wizard eyes, vision beyond vision to track your quarry. So Fionna and Fennel both pick a leaf and eat it. And Cake's like, She's like, I don't mess with salad. And Fiona's like, it's not working. Hunter's like, well, give it a minute. And they both grab more leaves, and then they like munch on them. And then Fennel's eyes like turn red and like swirly. And she's like, whoa. Same with like Fiona's. And then they're like, manhunt. And Fennel's like, yeah, dude. And she's like, yeah. And they're like, yeah. And they both are like, manhunt. They run out of the bathroom. Huntress looks at the one leaf remaining. She's like, yeah, they had way too much. So they're tripping out now on weird hand leaves or something like that. Out in the front of the building, they run to the corner. Fionna like squints and she's like, beep, 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 beep. And she sees like this little purple blobby guy. And she's like, whoa, do you see that? And Fennel's like, the busted rat looking thing? And they're both like, let's follow it. Cake comes out and gasps because they just like ran into traffic. So she like turns into like a crossing guard and like stops some cars. The purple thing like walks through a wall, and Fionna like bonks her head on the wall, like trying to follow it. She goes inside. It's like a hair salon or something. And then she bonks her head again when it goes through like the back or into like this counter or something like that. Fennel like crawls up next to her and points up, and she's like, Fionna, look. So LSP is sitting getting his nails done, and he has like this purple aura around him. So their eyes like go sparkly, and they both are like, wow. So they stand, and Fiona's like, what's going on with you? And he's like, so he's getting his nails done, and he's getting like some, I don't know, I forget what they're called, like the nail jewelry stuff. And he's like, just getting some tasty snacks for the squirrelies. So it's like, are they going to eat the decoration things? And Fiona's like, you're glowing. And he's like, yeah, I get that a lot. And then we see like LSP float out of him and above him. And Fionna and Fennel both are like, wow. Cake walks and tells Fionna that she's freaking her out. Then she sees Mcron sitting in another chair. So Fionna sees he has like a blue shimmer around him, which turns him into like an elongated blue unicorn, because he's like, yeah, he's the male counterpart. Fennel's like, that man is a horse. And both like, go to him. So Cake tells him, she's like, shop. Then Fionna turns to Ellis and says that DJ Flame has gone missing. And he says that 90% of the time a hottie goes missing around here is because they've been taken by aliens. And he's like, I got firsthand experience. He opens up his jacket and has several like kind of crayon drawings like pinned inside his coat. He's like, and Fiona's like, but aliens aren't real. And Ellis is like, believing is seeing. So then they both look outside. They see like floating colored creatures fly by, and they gasp, and they're like, after them. So they run out. Cake's like in her humanoid-ish form, whatever. And she was like, well, where are they going off now? Out on the street, they're like, manhunt. They see this building on fire. And Fiona's like, it's Flame's aura. They both gasp. They run in. It's like, okay, is this really on fire? Or are they seeing this? Inside, they're like Felix, they're calling out to him. And then they both start coughing. And Cake busts through the wall, kind of like Kool-Aid Man. And she stretches both her arms, grabs him, jumps out to hold it that she just made. So they're like on the second floor. And as soon as they land, like Cake gets blasted by a fire hose, and she's like, yow! And a firefighter, and I think they're supposed to be like hot firefighters because they're like wearing like tight shirts or something like that. So one's like, it's like, what the hell were you thinking running into a live burn? And as the fire truck pulls up, the driver's like, we're doing a drill. And Fionna like looks around, she's like, huh? And then a few colored glob people like point inside the flaming building, and she's like, he has to be in there. So they run back. Cake's like, nah, grabs them again. They're like protesting. Fennel's like banging on Cake's fists, and Fionna like chomps down. Cake says that she's like, I'm putting you in a timeout. So she goes to by some porta potties, puts them both in one that says out of order, and she's like, this is why you don't eat salad. And inside you hear Fennel's like, magic chamber. She's like, oh my God, it smells good in here. Cake puts like a shovel on the outside of the door, so on the handle, so they can't get out. and Fiona's like yelling, and Cake says that, she's like, I gotta get Plant Girl. And inside, Fiona's like, I don't get it. Like, are we doing Wizard Eyes bad? Feels like I'm doing a lot bad lately. And Fiona's like, come on, you're doing your best. And Fiona's like, meanwhile, everyone else around me has their junk figured out. Cake, Gary, Felix, and Hunter. She's like, oh, is it? You just like, they just popped out of the womb like that. And she's like, Hunter's had some messy, angry times too. And Fiona's like, pfft. It's like, yeah, right. And Fiona's like really angry. They really had to focus on filling their cup and then expanding that cup for years. I'm proud of them. The Hunter, that took a lot of work, takes a lot of work. And Fiona's like, oh, huh? It's like, well, maybe if we focus all our attention on Felix together, the Wizard Eyes will show us the way. And Fiona's like, good idea. So they close their eyes, they put their palms like together, take deep breath, and they say his name. And then there's like a pink purple glow outside. So Fiona braces, like gives the door a good kick. It opens up. She broke like the shovel. Outside they gasp. There's like this purple diamond spaceship thing that descended. And then you see on top is like the platform thing that LSP saw in his dream. And then I was like, oh, that's what that is. And Fiona's like, Elsa's right. So they climb up, they lean back on this. It's like the teleporting thing that we saw. I think it was, I forgot what season it was, but in Adventure Time when Magic Man was getting tried and they were getting teleported to Mars or something like that. So they're like, Elsa's right. They lean back on the metal things or whatever. And they're both like, take us to Felix. So it lights up. There's like purple light surrounds them, and they float up a bit, and then they like shoot up like into the sky, like out into space. Cake brought Huntress to the porta potty, and she's like, dang it, because they're gone. And Huntress like looks down at the broken shovel. She hears Spirit Wizard, a broken tool. And she thinks back to the dream, and then sees like Fiona with Hunter holding roses, and Felix puts like a heart-shaped box, pulls out chocolate, whatever. And she's like, flame will lead me to the heart. He must be located. Cake's like, okay, hey, I think they went this, and then Huntress is gone. She's like, what? It's like, I'm going to bite her head off. Huntress runs into City Gardens. She sniffs a nut, and she's like, Fiona. And then she eats like a leaf off her hand, and then her eyes turn red. And then this little blue rabbit pops out of the nut and jumps down, and jumps over or to the towers, goes through a door. Little fire figure comes out, jumps into like a puddle and like fizzles out. And Hunter's like, where did Bjork did he go? So she touches a tree, like, did you see? And she like kneels, puts her hands on it, and like whistles. The tree kind of vibrates, and then she goes into the tree. So it's kind of like before when they were in the tree, and she like looks out like a sort of window thing, and she sticks her head out. So she's like part of the tree. It's like raining, and you can hear DJ Flame's voice. He's like, yeah, for sure. He's like, that's too tempting an offer to pass up. Because he's walking on his phone outside his place, and he's like, near Moore and Orange. He's like, I'll head right over. Be there in 10 tops. So she climbs out of the tree, and then back into the present. She sees Hunter digging holes like to plant some flowers, and she's like, yo, Marshmallow. And he's like, oh, it's you. And Hunter's like, do you know a man called Moron Orange? And he's like, Moron Orange, or they're like, Moron Orange. He's like, oh, you mean Moore and Orange? He's like, it's an intersection uptown. And Hunter's like, show me. And Hunter is like, I'm busy. And Hunter's like, with helping plants? Hunter's like, yes. And Hunter's like, well, I'm a plant, and she like groans, like exhales. She's like, I need your help. And they smirk because they know that wasn't easy for Huntress to admit. Marshall is strumming his guitar on the rooftop, and then there's like a giant pigeon trying to shoo like regular pigeons, so it's clearly that guy in a costume. So he's like, stop following me. and then he like hisses and leaps up at the guy, kind of like Marceline style almost. He like tumbles back, so he's like, no, 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 no. He's like, I work for your mom. And this like stops Marshall. So the dude takes off the head of the pigeon costume, and he's like, my job is to keep you safe. He's like, I mean, don't you ever wonder why you never got kidnapped as a child? And Marshall's like, no. And he's like, you're welcome. And remember that sketchy ice cream lady? Marshall's like, Simone? And the dude's like, chased her off with the big guns and a restraining order. And he's like, you what? And he's like, Hannah's orders. She flipped when I told her that woman was hugging on you. And he's like, I was hugging her, you idiot. I liked her. And the dude's like, she was on the square? It's like, oh. It's like, hey boy, is my face red? So Fiona and Fennel are still like zapping through space. So they like fly through a satellite. I'm like, is this really happening? So then they're like hugging each other, screaming. Fiona opens her eyes and looks around. Fennel continues screaming. And Fiona's like, wow. So they make it to another planet. Yeah, so they went to Mars before, but this isn't Mars. And Fennel's like, is this real? So there's more flying glob creatures. Like there's some strange structures. There's a big statue. There's a flying red glob flies up to Fennel's face, laughs, and flies through her, and she screams. And she's like, oh, I want to clear my head so bad. Fiona's like, it's going to be okay, Fennel. She's like, we just have to find a friendly local. And she's like sort of waving her hands, and she accidentally like slaps a local and leaves like a mark on her face. And the local, the person's like, I can still feel the kiss of your hand on my cheek. Fiona's like, I'm so sorry. The local says, please. And she gets down on a knee, pulls out like a sparkly diamond ring. Allow me this intimacy. And Fiona's eyes go sparkly, and she's like, whoa. She's like, yes. And she's like, see, Fennel, friendly local. So the local says, this is Venus. We are all friendly here. It's like, come, fiancé. A celebration is about to commence. So wait, Fiona just got engaged? So they start walking, and then she starts singing to Fennel. She's like, I forgot how to beat what it was like, take my hand, don't be shy. Feel how your heart starts to rush at the touch of each passerby. Here, love is blind, always respectful, selfless and kind, all this stuff, whatever. Then the Queen of Venus, it was like, looks like a giant statue with like no arms, but sort of like some wires, like robot arms or hands. And the statue talks. So this is the Queen. It says, beloved Venusians, we have gathered here to celebrate the capture of Earth's greatest source of love. He creates love and lust, enough to power our mighty cities single-handedly. He is Flame. And she pulls off like a sheet off something. It's DJ Flame sitting on a chair. And he has like heart-shaped sunglasses. And the lenses are like swirling, whatever. So he's like out of it. Fennel and Fiona both yelled, like, Felix, we object. The Queen's like, cold fish. And Fiona's like, I challenge you to a duel. The crowd's like booing. One's like, the one says like, the engagement is off. And Fennel's like, a duel in the name of love. And the crowd cheers. And the Queen's like, So then they're somewhere like getting dressed. And Fennel's like, is all this necessary? And this little floating person's like, it's crucial. It's like, you can't enter the arena without love-enhanced suits. And Fiona says that, they're right. Fighters need gear. And Fennel's like, I've never been in a fight before. I'm not a badass like you. And Fiona's like, I'm just impulsive and violent. I'm not a good fighter, especially not compared to Finn. In the arena, Fiona and Fennel come out in their like body armor suits. The crowd boos. The Queen's like, strange aliens from distant Earth. I will return your heart's desire if you can beat my champion. And Fiona's like, well, take on your best fighter. And the Queen's like, my best lover. So this dude comes out in like armor body as well. The crowd cheers. The fighter grows a little bit. It's like, wait, what? And Fiona like draws the sword that she chose before, but now it's just kind of like a stub of a sword. And it's like, huh? And the other fighter's like, haha, it's like, you're a terrible lover. And he's like holding this wand like thing. He like kisses it, and then bling, It like he swings it and it makes like a trail of like bubble hearts, and they wrap around Fiona, and she's like, so she's all wrapped up. She like falls over, and then the fighter's like, ha ha. It's like, come on, baby. Like flexes and arm gets bigger, and Fiona says to Fennel's like, everything here is powered by love. So Fennel pulls out her tiny nub sword. She's like, I love swords. Nothing happens, but then she gets hit by like a blast of heart bubbles. So the creature's like, the affection must be genuine, silly Eartho. The crowd cheers, and then the fighter gets bigger, like a bigger shoulder. And Fennel like is like bound, looks up, and she's like, Fiona, I love that you're so brave. And then Fiona's right shoulder gets bigger. It's like, and how you support your friends. Her left shoulder gets bigger. It's like, you're incredible. And then her chest plate gets bigger. And she's like, I've admired you for so long. And Fiona's able to like strain and like bust free from the hearts. And she's like, guess what? And the fighter's like, huh? And Fiona's like, I generally love swords. So the fighter blows more bubbles, hearts, but Fiona's able to deflect them with her sword now. And they wrap around the fighter. And then Fennel's like, now do me. And Fiona's like, you have cool hair. Bloop. And she's like, what else? And she's like, I just met you. And there's like, boo, and people. And she's like, I'm sorry. It's like, you're a good listener. You're so supportive. And bloop. And she's like, I'm glad Hunter has a friend like you. Bloop. She's like, I didn't think we'd get along. Then the fighter grabs Fiona from behind. And she's like, but I think I want to be your friend. And Fennel's like, I want to be your friend. So they both like squeeze the fighter, and then the head pops off. Because I don't know if it was like a robot or something like that. And then they're like, let's go get him. So they both leap up and they grab Flame. The queen gasps like with her hand to her forehead. At more in orange, Hunter and Huntress, they see plants getting like thrown out like over this fence. And then the energy teleport thing, Fennel, they're all in there. So Fennel's like, what's wrong? And Fiona's like, you're beautiful. Fennel blushes, and she's like, so are you. They both laugh. And so they were kind of holding DJ Flame, because he's like, whatever, in a daze. But he falls out of their grasp, and then they see him like falling beneath, and they both scream. And they like peer through the bushes, and they see like 4 suits, and Huntress like jumps over and starts yelling. So Fiona's like, I kill Flames, like, I'm so sorry, Fennel. And she's like, no, this is my fault too. And they both start crying. And then you see them like hugging, and they're like smearing things on each other. And Huntress has like a bowl of yellow goop, and they're like on top of the Ferris wheel. And then Fiona's like, did any of that actually happen? So Cake like stretches up like worried, and she's like, Fennel's been fine this whole time. He'll be at the gig tomorrow. And Fennel's like, says that she should probably get home or go see him. So she's like, see you at the gig. Huntress clears her throats and like startles Fiona. And she's like, I mulled it over. I will help you save your sweet spot. Fiona's like, and then Hunter's like, you are the tool I've been missing. And Fiona's like, oh? So then Marshall, he's talking to Fiona. He says he doesn't want to have boys' night at the mausoleum because he just discovered something messed up about his mom. I guess about the ice cream vendor. And he's like, I hope you understand. And she's like, oh yeah, I get it. And she's like, it's okay if you want to sit this one out. And he's like, wait, what do you mean? She's like, it's too late to change anything. If we pull out of the venue now, our fundraiser will fail. She's like, I'm doing this all for you. And she's like, hello, Marshall? Because, she was talking to him on the phone, whatever. And then there's like colored critters around her, and then there's none. So I think Marshall, I don't know if Marshall's feeling bad about his mom, or just, he was down before because no one really cares about his music. So I don't know, it's weird. So that was episode 7. And I think we have 3 more episodes left. But what's interesting is from the trailer, like all the footage we saw in the trailer were for these episodes, so we don't know what's happening in the last three. So obviously they're not going to show everything in the trailer and spoil it all, but it's like we got 3 episodes left and they need to wrap all this up, and all this other weird random stuff keeps happening. So I guess we'll see what's next.
All right, now Stranger Things, Season 5, Episode 2, Chapter 2. So what's interesting, I feel like I might have mentioned it. I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but when I first watched the first episode, and then I looked at, the next one came up, and it's like the vanishing of ... I was like, what could that be? But then when I went to watch this a couple days later, they changed the title. So now it's the vanishing of ... Holly Wheeler. That makes sense because, for what we see. But I guess when they released the titles, they probably didn't want to spoil that. So I appreciate that because, that is a bit of a spoiler if you haven't watched it. But so it starts off with the Demogorgon like screaming through Holly's ceiling, and I feel so bad for this kid. And so here's the thing. Let me like reiterate. I remember it's like so little of the show. It was funny because like my daughter's ahead of me now. Last I talked to her, so she's probably past it now. And definitely when I post this, she's going to be past it. But she was like, I think she watched 3 episodes, and I'm like, man, I'm just started like episode 2 when I talked to her, and, and I told her, I don't remember at some point when I realized, I think it was during this episode, I was like, I just realized that Nancy, Mike, and Holly are all siblings, and she's like, what? I was like, they're never together. She's like, yeah, they are, and. So that's the thing. I mean, I'm horrible with names. It's a miracle. I learned I remembered her names now. And it's just it's so long in between seasons and stuff like that. And I guess I think there was that one season, whatever it was, when like 11 went to Chicago or whatever, and they did that weird episode which felt like it was trying to be like a pilot for some spinoff, and. I don't know, maybe I just block some things out of my mind or whatever. I would love to go back and watch like the first season and just like rewatch it again. I just don't have that time or luxury, I guess. But it's interesting. And what I want to say for anyone listening who doesn't normally listen to me and they're like, man, who the heck are you? I may have been kind of harsh on Robin, and I don't regret. I don't take back what I said, but I do think it was like annoying and stuff like that. But I was like curious about Robin and all this. Somehow I got on I don't know, it might have come up in a subreddit or whatever. So someone was like talking about Robin, and someone's like, it's like, yeah, what she was saying is pretty cringe, the way she was saying it. And I get that. And what some people were saying, and I asked my daughter about this, and she's like, I don't know. But there's a theory that Robin is autistic. And I mean, that would explain a lot. That would explain, not really like that. That would explain a bit about her personality. Now, obviously, with autisms, there's different degrees, there's different levels of different, whatever of autism. So it's possible that she could have that. But the fact that there was like a whole group, the whole subreddit, I think it was a subreddit or something, where all these people are talking, and there's a lot of people who are like, I'm autistic. It's like I feel seen. It's like she's totally autistic and all this stuff. And just the fact that a lot of time girls aren't diagnosed, and also the fact that this was the 80s. I mean, did you know anyone? If you were around in the 80s, do you know anyone that was diagnosed as autistic? I mean, it was just so rare. Because I asked my daughter, I was like, well, what about the fact, she knew all this stuff about Diana Ross, and she's like, well, maybe she's just a fan, and she just said, which is possible. But it just felt very like this is the script. This is not like realistic dialogue. The fact that you would have this, it's different because like in today's age, you can just, you could search all this information. You can go online and you have it. You can read it, and then it's fresh in your mind. Where is she going to get all this information from? She going down to the library. Maybe she I don't know. Maybe I was a little harsh on Robin, but I think it was a little cringe. And I really like the character. I want to say, I think Maya Hawke, I don't know her, whatever. I think she's cool. She seems cool. I don't know. And the character is fine. She's a likable character, but it was just too much. And yes, it is a TV show, but a lot of times they overdo stuff, and it's not supposed to be realistic. Okay, yeah, you got Eleven who has these superpowers or whatever. It's not realistic, but that's not the point. Or when it's just, it pulled me out. That's all I want to say about it. So, okay, so going back to this, Holly's, she's like, it's screaming, or the Demogorgon screaming. She screams. She climbs over her bed. So it's like, okay, thank goodness. She gets out of the corner. She jumps down, the Demogorgon jumps down through the hole, grabs her, throws her. She's at the door. Grabs her, throws her across the room until she smashes into her bookshelf. And she falls on the floor, and it's like she's knocked out. And it's like, oh man. And I just feel real bad. I don't know if it's because I have a daughter, but it's like this poor little girl. It's like, what is going on? That she's like fighting for her life, trying to escape this huge, monstrous thing. Meanwhile, Mom, Karen, she's in the bathroom. She's in her nightgown. She's about to take like a bubble bath with a glass of wine. It's like, their house isn't that big. The fact that she doesn't hear the screaming, the screeching from the Demogorgon, the smashing at a bookshelf. I was just like, and where's Dad? Ted, he's still out like golfing or hitting a golf club. So, but then it's like, wait, it goes back. Holly is conscious because the Demogorgon grabs her leg to try to bring her through the hole. To take her to the upside down. She's like screaming, but her mom isn't hearing her. She manages to grab onto like the bed railing as it's like pulling her up, and she's calling out, "Mom, Mom!" And then her boot comes off because it pulls the boot off, and it falls to the floor. So she like rolls over and she like looks up. The Demogorgon opens its face, roars at her. She runs out. She goes down the hall. So it's like, okay. The stairs are right there. Should she go down the stairs? She ends up going down the hall to her mom's room. She locks the door. She runs in the bathroom, and she yells at her mom. She's like, "There's a monster!" And her mom's like, "What are you doing? What's wrong?" When she tries explaining, and Karen is like, "Slow down." And she's like, "Whatever you saw, baby, it was just a nightmare." And this is like the crazy thing that like people don't know what's going on. That they're like oblivious that things like this exist, even though they're like in this quarantine and all that. So she's like, it's just a nightmare. And Holly, she's like, no, please. She's like, just listen. She's like, you have to believe me. Karen just like hugs her and shushes her. And then she feels some blood on Holly's head because she sees like blood on her hand. She stares at her hand. There's a loud bang. It's like startles them both. And the lights start flickering. So Ted is apparently outside in the yard. I was like, did he drive off somewhere? But no, he's just like right outside. He notices the light starts to flicker. He's like, what the heck? So inside, footsteps are like approaching the bathroom, and then the flimsy door starts like cracking from the banging. Meanwhile, Mike and Lucas are on their bikes. They're speeding to the house. He radios Nancy, and she says she's like 5 minutes away. She's with 11, and Mike's like, "Well, you're ahead of us." He's like, "Just be careful." Demogorgon knocks the door down. It roars and looks in the bathroom. It busts open this little like closet door, like right inside the bathroom. Because it doesn't see anyone there, smashes like the frosted shower door, which is unnecessary, and then she looks at the bathtub is like full of bubbles, and where are Karen and Holly? They're like underwater, like under the bubbles, and they're both like struggling to hold their breath. Then Ted calls from downstairs, and it gets his attention. So I was like, okay, they're underwater. Like, how long can they hold their breath? I rewatched the scene, which was a waste of my time because I have so much to do. I rewatched it. It took 46 seconds for when it busts the door open to reach the tub. And so basically, they would have had to enter the tub, fix the bubbles over them, and hope that it's covering them completely. So basically, they had to be underwater for close to a minute. It's possible, yes. And see, this is the little details like this. I appreciate this, but that's a lot. And they were like really struggling. So Ted, he's like walking with his golf club raised, but it's like this bothered me because he would have no reason to be defensive just because the lights are flickering. I don't think he is aware of what's going on. At the top of the stairs, then he sees like the bedroom doors knocked down, like down the hall, and like a lamp like pushed aside. So he calls out, "Is everything all right?" The Demogorgon exits the bathroom right as the two pop up from underwater. So perfect timing. Great. Then Ted sees like the bedroom is trash. He calls out to Holly. He must have missed like the big, huge claw marks like right on next to the door or whatever. He turns a little corner like in the master bath, he sees a Demogorgon. He tries telling it, he's like, stay back, even though it's like 2 feet taller than him. And he's like barely like waving the club. He's just like holding it up. And then finally he swings like hard and hits it. It roars. He swings again, but it catches the club, knocks it out of his hand, and then whoosh, swats him. He flies across the room, through the wall. I'm assuming he lands in Mike's room, maybe. But he like hits the opposite wall. So he flies across the master bedroom, goes through the wall, flies across Mike's room, hits the wall, lands on the floor. And it looks like his chest might be bloody from getting hit because, the thing's got like huge claws. He's out. He's definitely out. Karen and Holly, they run out of the bathroom meanwhile because of the distraction. They go down the hall and down the stairs. And then at first I was like, okay, wait, this Demogorgon, or is there another one, busts through the front door? So this is the sucky thing where it's not fair. Apparently they can come and go, which I totally forgot this. They can come and go through, back and forth between the upside down whenever they want. So it must have gone back and then went around and jumped down. and because the front door opens, there's like red behind it, so they turn to go through the kitchen to the back door, but then Karen slips and slides into a cabinet because she was just in a bathtub, she's bare feet, whatever. So Holly turns back to Chuck and her mom, and then she like helps her up. Then the Demogorgon's gone around, cuts them off. Karen like pushes Holly back to face it herself, and she grabs the bottle of wine on the counter, smashes the end. She holds up, stay away from my daughter. So go, Karen. It roars at her, and Holly's like, Mom, no. Karen charges, and she actually like hits it, slashes several times. It's like 8 times until like the scene cuts to, changes to the next scene. So the first one was like dead center in like its face mouth thing or whatever. So, okay, it might have, thrown it off a bit. And the other blows were like to the shoulder and chest. So she got some solid hits in there. So when the scene changed, it cuts to like Nancy approaching the house, and, the lights are flickering. Eleven's like, it's inside. So Nancy's like, yeah, I see it. She's like, get ready. So they go through the door. Nancy has a shotgun raised, and Eleven's like by her side. And then she freezes. Cut to Mike and Lucas on their bike. Mike's like, Nancy, what's going on? It's like, talk to me. What's happening? Nancy's still standing in shock. The camera pans down. There's a big splotch of blood, and then you see like the bottle. And then it backs up a bit. We see Karen like hit it again. She gets ready for another blow, and then it roars. Then it shows Karen's bloody body on the floor. So then cut back to Karen swinging the bottle. She swings it like down while the Demogorgon's long arm jabs like at her from underneath her arm, like when she swings out, and it like kind of impales her. There's like lots of blood, and then there's no audio. We see like Holly scream, and then it swats her with its right hand. Blood splatters on Holly's face. Karen goes down, and she got hit like in the chest and the throat, and we see her like gasping to breathe, and she's like lying on her back. Then it cut to Nancy and Eleven coming in. Nancy puts like the gun on the counter to check on her mom. Nancy like takes her jacket off, puts it on her mom's chest to probably like, try to stop the bleeding. She tells her, not to talk, to stay calm, and she's going to be fine. And Karen whispers, Holly. So then cut back to when she got stabbed, swatted and knocked down. Holly's standing there screaming, and she's frozen as the Demogorgon starts walking towards her. Nancy and Eleven, they look up, they see a hole in the front door leading to the upside down, and it's starting to like change back to normal. So like the hole is closing. So Nancy's like, go, 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 go. 11, this was annoying. She's standing there, and then she just starts walking, walking a little quickly, but she doesn't even try running. She just like walks, steps through it, and then the opening, it closes completely. So it's like, okay, you almost missed it. And then now we get the intro. So all that happened before the opening intro. So then we see Karen's like wheel through the hospital on a gurney. There's lots of blood. Nancy and Mike are following the doctors. They also have their dad. Then his pulse is like steady and weak, or whatever. Was it steady? Nancy wants to go in with them, but nurse tells them, let the doctors do their job. They'll update them as soon as they can. And then Nancy, Mike, Lucas is there too. They're left like standing in the hall. Later, Nancy is. I paused there for a second because one of the other things I saw is like people were mentioning is what's going on with Nancy or with Karen and Ted, because I don't know if it's from this scene right here where it talks about like their age. You know, we got a male, whatever, in his 40s or something like that. But apparently, and this I totally don't remember any of this, but apparently they had mentioned at some point that they met in high school or something like that. But then somehow they said that he was like 40 something and she's like 38 or something like that. So it's like, there's no way they could have been in high school at the same point. And then this is when I was looking about stuff on Robin, and somehow I came onto this. Someone's like, well, in the Broadway play, whatever, that only showed in New York or something or somewhere else, they kind of explained this or something like that. And I don't even know what that means. So whatever. Later, Nancy's standing in the bathroom. She's by the sink. She's like washing the blood off her hands. It's like all over her hands and her arms. And she's like just scrubbing and sobbing. So then we see Nancy, Mike, and Lucas are sitting in the waiting room. Nancy says that it's all her fault, and Mike says that they got there as fast as they could. She's like, well, I'm not just talking about tonight, and this is kind of what I said before. She's like, we could have acted yesterday, last week, last fall. We could have tried to get them out of Hawkins, or at least told them the truth. They could have done something, anything. Then Mike's like, well, we could have known that, any of this would happen. And she's like, do you really believe that? And he's like, after all this time, it comes for Holly. Holly, who has nothing to do with any of this, it makes no GD sense. And she says that it makes perfect GD sense. Vecna told her this would happen. He showed her. And she's like, not just the four gates. Holly, mom, dad, dead. And we just chose not to believe him. But now it's all gone, it's all going true. Like, don't you get it, Mike? Vecna's coming back to realize his vision to punish us. He did it with Fred and Chrissy and Max, and now it's our turn. So when she said this, I'm like, wait, Fred and Chrissy? Who the heck is Fred and Chrissy? It was Chrissy the cheerleader? I don't even know. Don't even ask me. And she's like, he's not going to stop. He's not going to stop until we're drained of every last ounce of suffering. And Lucas like, I'm not so sure this was about punishment. Vecna doesn't really leave things unfinished. He doesn't hold back. Because if this was really about making you guys suffer, why leave your parents alive? Why take Holly to the upside down and not leave her body for you to find? Why not come here himself? Why send one of his pets? And Mike's like, what are you saying? It's not Vecna? And Luke's like, I'm saying I don't know, and neither do you. There are just too many questions right now. I'm just having serious deja vu because this is exactly what happened to Will at almost exactly the same time. And they like both look at him. He's like, you know what the date is, right? It's November 3rd. Will was taken on the 6th. We're less than 3 days away. 3 days from away from the day that changed everything. He's like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe in coincidence. Not anymore. He's like, we got Will back, and we're going to get Holly back because she's not alone. Eleven's in there with her. And if anybody could save your sister, and Mike's like, it's Elle. And Nancy nods. Then we see some helicopters flying over the neighborhood, and they're like, everyone stay inside. It's like, that's going to do any good because the Demogorgons can easily go inside. Soldiers and scientists are at the Wheeler house. They pick up Holly's boot that came off. They put it in a bag. Soldier tells like some higher ranking soldier that the daughter found her mother here. They believe Mrs. Wheeler's trying to escape when she was attacked. And he's like, no one saw the intruder? And the dude's like, no, by the time she got home, the intruder was gone along with her sister. And he's like, the daughter, she arrived alone? And the dude's like, that's what she told us. Then the guy looks over at the burn marks on the front door where the other exit was. And he says that he wants them to pull all video surveillance within a 2-mile radius of the house. But what kind of surveillance did they have in the 80s? Because it's not like, there's like CCTV, whatever, cameras everywhere. And it's not like stores had cameras. I mean, and if they had cameras in what is this, 87? I don't even remember. It's like the footage would be crap. Yeah, I think about the camera like the Game Boy camera. It's like, that was so bad. I don't know. Maybe there's a better camera. In the Upside Down, 11 she's still just walking. And she's calling out Holly's name. She's not like trotting or walking at a brisk pace or jogging. She's just not in a rush. Because those Demogorgons, they run fast. She starts looking in the woods. She hears something and she ducks behind a tree. And then she jumps out, uses her power, send it flying back. It was actually Hopper. So she runs to check on him. He's surprised to see her. He's like, how'd you get here? And, she doesn't answer or check on him. She just like takes his flashlight while he's lying on the ground. He's bleeding. She doesn't realize this because he got shot in the side. He tries getting up, says that, she's got to get out of there. It's not safe. And she's like, or she says that there's a demogorgon and it's bleeding. And, so she must have heard it. And he's like, what? Who? And Eleven's like, Karen with her wine. And he's like, what? And Eleven's like, when I search for Holly, I can't find her, but she must be close. He's like, Holly? And Eleven's like, we just need to find a blood. He's like, Holly Wheeler? What are you? Wait a minute. And she just keeps moving. At the radio station, Robin and Joyce, they're looking at a fuse box, and so it looks kind of fried. Robin looks over at Will, who's still holding like an ice back to his head, and she whispers, like she asks, she's like, is this this kind of thing has happened before with the visions? And, where the lights go kooky in electronic short circuit? Joyce says no. And then she's like, are there any backup fuses or something? Robin's like, in storage, I think. It's like, I hope, right? And then she looks at Joyce and she's like, oh, you'd like me to get them? And she's like, of course. But it's like, who else would get them? So the fuses, the power's out, and she's just like standing there because I expect someone to do it for her. I don't know. Joyce is talking with Will, says that, she knows it's hard to talk about, but these visions, were they like, was this what they were like before? Like when, he had his now memories and he like nods. He says only it's more intense. It's like he was there, like he was, like he was the Demogorgon. He was seeing what it was seeing and thinking what it was thinking. She's like, do you have any idea why I would go after the Wheelers, take Holly? He's like, I don't. I'm not sure. It's so hard to remember everything. It's almost like a dream. She's like, I must have somehow tapped back into the hive mind. And she's like, but we severed that connection. He's like, I don't think it was ever truly severed. Ever since he took me, it's like I was permanently changed. And we see some flashbacks. And he's like, these feelings of connection, they come and go. But that summer, after the gate opened, I felt him again. And we see several times where he's like touching the back of his neck. And he's like, and it went away when I was in California. But the day after I got back, the feeling returned. And now he's closer. He's closer than ever before. So Robin comes back. She's like, maybe you're like a receiver, like a radio receiver, just like a magical human version. And he's like, I don't follow. She's like, okay. And she like slides down the railing in a flashy way to prepare for her big speech scene, right? Here we go. But I like Robin, but sometimes she's like, imagine that you have an antenna coming out from the top of your head, and Vecna, he uses mind flayer particles like radio waves. When the antenna is close to the waves, the signal comes through clear as day. But if you're too far away, and he's like, static, and she nods. And she's like, so maybe that's how we do it. That's how we find Holly. And Joyce is like, what, with your antenna? And he's like, earlier, I had a vision in the woods near the school. I didn't understand at the time, but maybe I was seeing through the Demogorgon's eyes then too. And maybe if I go back there, I can connect to the hive mind, to the signal. Of course, Joyce is ready to shut down his idea. And he's like, I've spied on Vecna before. And she's like, and he took control of you. He's like, I know, but, and she's like, and you almost died. And he's like, well, Holly will too if we don't do something. She's like, we are doing something. And Will's like, replacing fuses? And Joyce is like, we got to get the squawk back up so we can find Hopper. And he's like, Hopper, right. So this is about your boyfriend. She's like, he's our only connection to the upside down, to L. And he's like, and how does that get us closer to Holly? She's in there, Mom, all alone. I know what that's like. I won't just leave her there. Joyce is like, and we're going to get her back, but we're not going to risk your life while doing it. There's like a big sigh. And then she looks at Robin. She's like, are you just going to stand there? And Robin's like, right. Intimate family moment. Sorry. So she goes over to the fuses, try whatever fixing the power. Steve, he hooked some jumper cables to the van. There's like some girl's like Jeep or something like that. And she seems like very put out. She's like, how long is this going to take? He's like, well, we just got to let this sucker charge for a few minutes. So she's not happy. He goes inside the van with Jonathan. He's like, our good Samaritan may have just turned sour. She may have placed me. And Jonathan's like, what do you mean? He says that he stood up her sister on multiple occasions. Then Steve asks if he got a hold of Nance, and Jonathan's like, her dad's in an induced coma, mom's in surgery, they won't know anything for a couple hours. And Steve's like, well, maybe we should go see her in the hospital. Johnson's like, no, we should stick to the plan. Find Hopper, find 11, find Holly. And Steve's like, well, that seems complicated. It might take a lot of time. Johnson's like, okay. And Steve's like, well, the hospital's on the way. We could just swing by and bring Nancy flowers or something. Johnson sighs. He's like, I thought that maybe tonight you just give it a rest. And Steve's like, give what a rest? He's like, this BS macho competition for Nancy's attention. And Steve's like, what are you talking about? And Johnson's like, what am I talking about? He's like, really, dude? He's like, ever since I got back from Lenora, you are constantly showing off to her how you're better than me, which is poopy enough on a normal day. But now her parents are fighting for their lives, her sister's missing, and all you can think about is giving her flowers? You selfish, chauvinistic meathead? And then the girl starts like honking her horn to hurry. Steve tries starting the car, and then he goes to Jonathan. He's like, yeah, okay, caring about my good friend, yeah, that makes me a selfish one here? Okay. Or maybe, just maybe, you're the problem, dude. Ever since you got back from California, you've been acting like a paranoid pothead weirdo. Maybe if you stopped focusing on me and started focusing on her, then maybe the two of you would finally be happy. Right now, the only one more miserable in that relationship than you is Nance. So then the van finally starts. So Steve opens the door, he gets out, and then he stops. Someone comes like pushing a bike. He's like, you've got to be pooping me. It's Dustin. His face is all bloody. So I guess the punches and the kicks didn't do any major damage. And he just like waves to him. It's like, because they were like beating the crap out of him. But apparently it didn't do anything. Hopper and 11 are walking upside down woods. He's like, asks how exactly did she get to the Wheeler house? And she says that, did she take, or he asks if she took the Henderson shelter. And she's like, no, Nancy drove me. He's like, Nancy drove you? He's like, we don't drive ever, do we? Do we? And she's like, no. He's like, no, we take the tunnels. And she says that she wore her hoodie. He's like, oh, geez, that's great. He's like, I don't know why we've been crawling around in mud all this time. We should have just drove around in your hoodie. She's like, the tunnels are too slow. Holly was in danger. He's like, yeah, and now so are you. If those military guys haven't already caught you on camera, they will. And when they do, they'll be coming for you with everything they've got. She's like, then we'll have to end this before they find out. He's like, is that what this is about, ending this? She's like, the Demogorgon can lead us to Vecna. And he's like, how? And she's like, when I searched for Holly, I could not find her, just like Vecna. So maybe wherever she is, he is, where my powers cannot reach. He's like, I'm sorry, so your theory is what exactly? That it's that the Demogorgon has taken a little Holly Wheeler to Vecna as some kind of early Christmas present? She just like scoffs. He's like, what does Vecna want with Holly Wheeler? How does any of this make sense? She's like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, exactly. You don't know because you haven't put any thought into anything you've been doing tonight. You've been acting on impulse, on emotion, everything I taught you not to do. Then she sees like a smashed lug and there's like more blood than before. And she's like, it's slowing down. She's like, we can still catch it. And it's not emotion, it's instinct. Lucas talks to Max, which she's lying in her bed, in the hospital bed, how they're going in the dark, music's still playing in the background, from her boombox. He wishes that he had better news. He knows it's not going to be easy to end all this and defeat Vecna. Elle is amazing, but she's going to need help and the full party. He's like, that's why I'm here. It's like the final battle. I feel like it started tonight. And Max, we can't win this without you. My theory is that we're running out of time. So if you're planning on resurrecting anytime soon, now is a time. He's like, even a sign would be enough to show me that you're still there. It's like, please, Max, please, wake up. But then we see her heart monitor, and I don't know if it's spiking. I don't know what it was before, so maybe that's the sign, but he didn't see it. Mike gets a couple coffees from a vending machine. He walks back, and he stops. He looks in the windows, kind of like a nursery, and we see some books, and there's a wrinkle in time on top, so I don't know if that means anything. But there's this centaur with wings for arms on the cover or something like that. Then he's back in the waiting area. Nancy comes up. She's trying to get a timeline on Mom. He's just kind of in a daze, and she gets his attention. She's like, are you listening? He's like, well, I was just thinking about something Lucas said earlier about how he doesn't believe in coincidences anymore. And he's like, did Holly ever talk to you about Mr. Whatsit? And she's like, her imaginary friend from the book. He's like, yeah, it's Mrs. Whatsit in the book, so this is her own creation. At least that's what I thought.
when I went to pick her up from school today, she said that Mr. Whatsit told her that there were monsters in Hawkins, and he warned her that these monsters were coming for her. And on the same day, she's actually taken by a monster? That's a hell of a coincidence. And Nancy's like, and your theory is what exactly? He's like, what if Mr. Whatsit isn't a figment of Holly's imagination? What if he's real? And she's like, real? That doesn't make sense. And how have we never seen him? He's like, maybe we have, and we just don't know. And she's like, so who the hell is he? He's like, I don't know. And Nancy's like, well, how does he know Holly's in danger? He's like, I don't know. And she's like, if he was worried, why wouldn't he warn us or mom or do something about it? I don't know, Nance. My theory, it has holes. You're right. What I said earlier, we could have done more to protect them. I don't want to have any more regrets. And maybe my theory is wrong. But if it isn't, and he's real, then he would know things like why Holly was taken, or maybe even, and she's like, where she was taken. So how do you propose we go about finding who this guy was? And he's like, I was kind of hoping you'd tell me. He's like, you're the genius investigative reporter after all. And she's like, that's not fair, appealing to my ego. And she looks at the receptionist. She tells Mike, she's like, I'm going to need you to go talk to her and do your best sad lost boy puppy dog thing. He's like, my what? Why? And she's like, because she hates me and you're cute, and which I don't think you would call your sibling cute. That seems weird. And she's like, and we're going to need her help if we want to get close to the one person who knows about Mr. Whatsit, Mom. Steve and Jonathan are driving. Steve fills in Dustin and what they've been doing. He's like, and then you come looking like Rocky Balboa. So basically, of all the crawls, this was like the one to miss. So well done, Henderson. Really well done. And he doesn't say anything. He's like, speechless. That's new. And he's like, well, I'm still processing. It's a lot. And he's like, why Holly? Steve says that maybe 11 could tell them, but it's a bit difficult to contact her now that they've lost her connection with the Upside Down. And Dustin's like, okay, for the future, when the lights go from really bright to really dim, that means the generator's surging, so you have to turn everything off. And Steve's like, wow, great. Thank you for that. I'll remember that next time that this happens. Or maybe, and this could just be a suggestion, you could be where you're supposed to be. He's like, I was en route to the squawk. And Steve's like, right, when you fell off your bike. Remind me, what'd you fall onto? A knuckle sandwich? Jonathan's like, can you keep it down? He's like, I'm trying to listen for a signal in case you forgot. And Steve gives him like a sarcastic thumbs up in the rearview mirror. Then he calmly asks Dustin, like, who was it? He's like, it was Andy and his goons, right? He's like, you just poked the bear one time too many. Dustin's like, your concern is overwhelming, Steve. He's like, my concern? He's like, scoffs. He's like, I've shown nothing but concern for you since forever, and I have been repeatedly ignored. And now look at what happened. And now we are royally screwed. Dustin's like, correction, we are screwed because you don't know how to do the most basic thing, like prevent a power surge. And Steve's like, this is your problem. You can't admit that you're wrong. And Dustin's like, my mother could prevent a power surge. And Steve like yells. She's like, Jesus Christ. He's like, just admit it, Henderson. For once, you're wrong. You screwed up. And Jonathan yells again. He's like, hey, shut the hell up. A couple of seconds silence. And Dustin says to Steve that it seems like you two are getting along. And Steve's like, in this case, I actually like his suggestion. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And Dustin's like, I don't want to talk to you either. And Steve's like, good. And Dustin's like, good. And Steve's like, good. So Joyce tries calling, Scout Battalion, this is whatever. She's like repeating over and over again. She's getting static. Will's just like kind of sitting, staring off. Robin sits, and then she jumps up. She's like, great Scott, how long has that been red? And Joyce is like, I don't know. There's like a light. She's like, poop, 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 poop. The flux capacitor's down again. And Joyce is like, is that bad? And Robin's like, I mean, it could be. It's fixable, but it's a two-man job. She grabs Will, and they run up the stairs. Will's like, flux capacitor? And Robin's like, I was lying, obviously. She's like, that light is always red. She's like, everything's totally fine except for your mom's plan. I mean, no offense to your mom, but come on. The boys have circled zone G1 like 5 times already. Even if they miraculously find Hopper, where does that get us exactly? I mean, Holly's still missing, whereas your planet is genius. He's like, you think so? She's like, totally. She's like, you got an antenna in your head. Use it. He's like, so you want to, she's like, skip school, play hooky, connect your brain to an interdimensional monster signal, and save little Wheeler? I mean, your mom is going to be raging mad, and she probably is right. It's super dangerous, but, and he's like, isn't everything we do super dangerous? And she's like, precisely. So what do you say? And he's like, screw it. In the Upside Down, Dr. K is looking at black and white camera pictures of like Nancy's station wagon with 11 in the passenger seat with a hoodie. It's fuzzy, gray, black and white, gray, grim, whatever. But you could still tell. I'm surprised they're not worse. Whatever. She's like, when were they taken? So soldier dude, he's like 3 hours ago, give or take. So Dr. K is like, we've had sightings before. And he's like, yes, but this is different. And she's like, don't interrupt me again until you have her in custody. And she's about to walk out of the little office, and he like bursts out, she's here, Dr. K. And she's like, what do you mean, here? So then we see 11's like walking faster. Hopper tries telling her to slow down, because he was shot after all. But she doesn't know it, I guess. And she just barks back that, she's like, I found more blood, it must be close. But it's like she still doesn't have a plan. And then he's like cursing, complaining under his breath. He calls her like stubborn punk ass. And she looks back at him hobbling, and she's like, what are you doing? Like, we're going to lose her. He says, it's just a cramp, old age, give him a second. And then she goes back, she like kind of lifts his shirt, and she sees like I think the entrance and exit one are pretty close to each other, so it just kind of like skimmed him on the side. But he like winces, and she like, gives him a look. He's like, oh, it looks worse than it is. So she has him, sit down. She cleans the wound. He's like, where'd you learn to do this? And she's like, Max. She's like, first clean, then disinfect, then bandage. So when she's cleaning, he's like, He's like, it stings. She says, that means it's working. And then he's like, oh, you're more like me than I realized. And she's like, oh, a stubborn punk ass? And he's like, oh, I didn't realize you heard that. And she's like, well, you talk loud. And he's like, well, maybe I am one. And he starts going on how he never listens to his dad. They argued. Then he made him like recruit whatever, joined. He thought that he was smarter than officers. And she's like, were you? And he's like, sometimes. He's like, but I always listen to my gut or instinct, never to my brain, just like you. And he says that he did a lot of crazy things in that war, like reckless things. And he's like, you might call them brave, but there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity. Saw a lot of brave men in that war, friends of mine. And then he's like, my daughter, Sarah, she was brave. So flashback of his daughter in the hospital. She has like a shaved head, so she's fighting cancer. Then we see young Hopper, like kind of like sitting, lying next to her, like reading to her in the hospital bed. And when he's saying this, in the Upside Down, he like turns away. He's like, bravest person I ever knew. She stared death in the face. She never got scared. She never wavered. She fought her heart out. The doctor said that they never saw anything like that. They thought she was going to make it too. And then this part like made me sad, because then we see a flashback of her crashing. Hopper's wife like starts crying into his shoulder. And then there's another scene, after he's like just in the stairwell, like just on the floor, just like crying. He starts crying in Upside Down. And then she's like, so that's why you don't want me here, because you think Vecna will win and I will die? But it's weird. I remember this specifically. She's like, you think Vecna will win and I will die, not I'll die, I will die. So it's weird how she doesn't use the contractions there. And he's like, I don't think anything. I've just been around long enough to know that you can't count on anything in this life. I don't want to lose you. It's like, I won't, which is why whatever happens from here on out, wherever this blood leads, I need you to do what I say. And she's like, so don't be a stubborn punk ass like you. He's like, yeah. Then there's like roaring in the distance. So they get up, but he insists on like leading. In the hospital staff room, you see a doctor lighting a cigarette. This nurse comes in. She's like, I'm sorry, doctor. She's like, but it's the Wheeler children. He's like, what about them? She's like, they said they need to speak to you because and then it cuts to Nancy standing next to Mike. She's like, it's an emergency. Our sister's missing, as you know. He's like, I understand, and I'm very sorry. And Mike's like, well, we think our mom has something. And Nancy's like, or knows something. And Mike's like, about our sister, well, finding our sister. And the doctor's like, I wish I could get you in to see her, truly, but your mother is recovering from surgery. Her system is still in shock. Beyond that, her larynx is extremely damaged. She wouldn't be able to talk even if she were awake. And Nancy's like, right, even so. And he's like, shh. It's like, listen, finding your mother when you did saved her life. Let's not risk that now. All right, sweetheart? And he like walks away. And I'm just like, ugh. Mike's like, now what? and she like sees two nurses, like candy striper nurses, whatever, exit an elevator, talking about like changing some sheets on the bed or whatever. She like pulls Mike into the elevator. She presses janitorial level, and she says that who cares, whatever doctor's orders, whatever. She's like besides his breath. She's like, I don't trust doctors who smoke, or call me sweetheart. So the van's driving around. Steve says that he's going to do one more leap around the zone. Jonathan starts hearing something, but isn't sure what it is. Joyce can hear it too at the station. She's like, is that him? Then Dustin like pulls the headphones off Jonathan, and he's like, it's not Hop. He's like, could be a million things. Military broadcast, TV channel, any EMI within their frequency zone. He's like, I do know it's not Hop's telemetry tag, because if it was, it would show up on a decoder. So Jonathan, he's like, sorry, Mom. He's talking to her on a walkie-talkie. And he's like, it's false alarm. And she's like, is your receiver in any way connected to the flux capacitor? And he's like, sorry, Mom, can you repeat that? She's like, the flux capacitor. Robin said it was down. She and Will are working on it. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't messing with your connection. Dustin and Steve like turn back and look at him. It's like, is she serious? But Steve's like driving and he's like looking back. So then we see Robin and Will, they rode bikes out to the woods, and they're standing there at the edge, like, and she's like, we can still turn back if you want.
Will says that he's more scared of his mom at this point, to be honest. So they get off their bikes, they walk in the woods, they go to the location where he got dizzy and everything like that. He says he doesn't feel anything now, so he goes deeper in the woods. Then he says that if Robin's theory is right, he has to get closer to tap into the hive mind. So maybe. And as first, when they're and this is how forgetful I am of this, because they're like demo. It's like he's like maybe the demo was passing by. I was like, the demo? I was like, what are you talking about? What demo? Demogorgon. So I guess they apparently call him Demo, which makes sense because saying Demogorgon is kind of annoying all the time. So apparently, or maybe the Demogorgon was passing by and was heading for its monster lair. So they walk. There's a long pause of silence, and Robin finally speaks up. She's like, I've been meaning to ask you, were you at the hospital yesterday? And he lies, nervous. It's like, okay, you're totally lying. She saw you. And he's like, the hospital? He's like, no. And she's like, weird. I could have sworn I saw you there, but, and, pause. And she's like, Vicky's a candy striper. She's my friend. We're friends, good friends. But the thing is, some people might not understand our friendship. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you were there and did see something, it might be better if nobody knew, if it stayed between us. And he's like, I didn't see anything. And she's like, sorry, I just tend to get off topic when I'm nervous. And you said that thing about Monster Lair, and I thought, well, what if your mom was right? And you get kidnapped by Vecna. And then she sees this mandala, this like this spiral thing. She's like, oh, did you do this in Mrs. What's her name's class, like 5th grade or whatever? She's like, it's not really a mandala because it's a spiral. They're usually concentric circles, but it's it's the thought that counts. And then Will becomes kind of mesmerized, and things start spinning. And then he's like, I heard laughter, and she's like, what? He's like, in my vision, kids laughing, playing, and then he like takes off. He starts walking, and she's like, what does that have to do with the monster lair? She's like, Will. She goes after him. Hopper and Eleven continue walking. There's like sound in the distance. He says, it's not a Demogorgon. He tells her to stay close to him. Then they see it. She's like, what is it? And it's this like huge wall of like full of slimy, veiny, whatever texture stuff. So then 11 sees Holly's boot, and she's like, she was here. And she's like, maybe that's why I can't find her in my mind. It took her through the wall. And then the camera pans back like to the side, and we see that this wall is like massive. So at the hospital, elevator door opens. Will is like dressed in a hospital gown. Nancy's in a candy striper uniform. They walk down the hall. Then like the doctor's coming. So Nancy's like, oh, she tells Mike to limp. So, and she kind of like helps him walk, whatever. And then she critiques him for his limp. Like, what was that? Or whatever. So then she suddenly stops him because this door happens to be cracked open. They go in and they find Mom. So it's like, okay, that was convenient. Nancy tries talking to her, asks if she can hear her, and Karen's eye has a tear. So she opens her eyes. She tries turning to see that Mike's like, oh no, don't try to talk. And Nancy's like, asks if, can she write? And she grabs like a clipboard and puts like a pen in her hand, and she writes Holly ? And Nancy says that, that's why they're there, because Holly's missing. And Karen starts like gasping. I'm sure, it's like, oh crap, my daughter's missing. That's horrible. But there's probably, I'm assuming, some sense of relief as well. It's not that, oh no, your daughter, Holly's dead. It's like she's missing, so she's still alive, at least so far, potentially. So then, into the heart monitor, her heart starts beating faster. Mike says that, they're going to get her back. They just need, her help. So they think that there's someone that knows where Holly is, who knows why she was taken and where she is. They just don't know where they could be. So they're hoping that she might. And then Karen writes, who? ? And Nancy says they don't know his name, but Holly calls him Mr. What's-It. And Karen like kind of looks at them. In the woods, Will and Robin are running. Then they reach Holly's school, and she's like, what are we doing here? So he goes up to the merry-go-rounds. He spins and says that they're looking for that. So Karen writes, teacher saw talking to W, nobody there. And Will's like, he says, Robin, he's like, in my vision earlier, the sky was spinning. So I think I was here, right here in this merry-go-round during Miss Harris's recess. And we see Holly was lying on it when Derek starts spinning it. And she's like, I don't understand. I thought you were seeing through the Demogorgon. And he's like, I know, so did I. But, you said yourself, Vecna controls the hive mind, so which means that he's part of it too. So when he searches for his victims, she's like, he invades their minds. And he sees what they see. So Nancy asks Mom if Holly ever described Mr. What's-It to her. And maybe what he's wearing or anything like that. And then it cuts to Holly in the merry-go-round, and this man's like, Holly, time for breakfast. And she sits up, and Karen writes pocket watch, and we see a man holding a pocket watch, and you just see like his like arm holding the watch, like there's no other detail. And Nancy reads tall vest, and she's like, okay, he wears a vest. And then Robin, I think she's like, he's gentle and kind. I think she said that. And Will's like, so what if I was seeing through the eyes of Vecna's next victim, this victim that he's stalking, which means I was seeing through, and she's like, Holly's eyes. But if that's true, it would mean, and then Will's like, I was him. I was Vecna. And then they hear like the school bus arrive. Nancy asks if Holly ever said that he has a first name, and Karen starts writing. Holly's like walking with the best man, because you can't see who it is because she's shorter, obviously. Then she asks, are the others here yet? And then the man just says, no, not yet. And Holly's like, you will save them too, won't you? Save them from the monsters? And he's like, yes, Holly, don't you worry. I'm going to, I think he said, I'm going to save your friends. And then slowly, there's like all the suspense. We see what Karen wrote. She wrote Henry. And at first I'm like, Henry? I was like, wait a minute. That sounds familiar. So then we see Holly and the man go up these like porch stairs of this house. And we see like from the inside, the door opens. And in the man's face, it's Henry. So he's a patient. Patient 1, right? Vecna. And he says, then after, I'll save your family too, of course. I have room for everyone here. And he closes the door and we see the house from the outside. And that's the end of episode 2. So yeah, Vecna wanted Holly. Why? What is the deal? And I think I saw something where they're like, yeah, Holly is going to be like a key to something. I don't know why, but that's it. So next week we'll go to episode 3. And now the movie feature is Five Nights at Freddy 2. I feel like it needs a subtitle, like, not an Electric Boogaloo, but Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Here's more pizza, or I don't know. I have nothing. I can't, no creative, but yeah. So I didn't love this movie. I was just not into it, and I realized. So what like after I watched it, and I was just like, oh man. Apparently, there's like a lot of Easter eggs or fan service, a lot of little stuff like that. So maybe that's great. It's not for me. The thing is, and this could be telling something right here. The critics score. We'll jump straight to Rotten Tomato. Actually, the first Five Nights at Freddy, let's talk about that. The first one, the Rotten Tomatoes score, it was 33%, 86% audience. With the first one, I think it had a $20 million budget, and it ended up making like 320 million, or I forget, I don't have that in front of me. So it was not well received, but it was profitable. So obviously, yeah, they're going to make a sequel. They made a sequel, and I didn't. The critics don't like it again. It's worse, 12%. And normally, I don't agree with the critics. A lot of time, I feel like the critics are a little harsh. I feel like this movie is kind of all over the place, and parts of it were kind of silly, parts of it are kind of annoying. And also, I didn't have like the best theater experience, which I'll talk about. So 12% critics, 74 reviews as I record this. So that may change. It's probably not going to change that much. Audience popcorn meter, 88%. So the audience is digging it. But again, who's going to see this movie? People like me who kind of have to, and then people who really care about it. So the people that really care about it are probably going to love it. That makes sense. And that is great. If they're digging it, if they're happy with it, if the hardcore Five Nights at Freddy fans are enjoying it, that's kind of what matters. It doesn't have to be for everyone. It doesn't have to be for non-fans. Non-fans probably aren't going to get it. But I was like, I think it was on Instagram, it was a Rotten Tomato score post or something like that. And people were complaining about it. It's like, oh, you guys give this other movie, certified fresh, but this one. And it's like, okay, people just do not understand it. Rotten Tomatoes does not give out scores. They take the aggregate scores. So this 12% means 12% of the critics gave it a favorable review. It doesn't mean Rotten Tomatoes saying this movie is a 12%. That's not how it works. And people they think all the time that Rotten Tomatoes is giving us scores. It's like, no. And in this post, a lot of people are like, masterpiece. I'm like, are you serious? So we got more of the story going on. It starts off in 1982. So we get, more of the backstory. Great, awesome, cool. But there's also stuff with like Matthew Lillard, and I absolutely love Matthew Lillard. I think he's great. He's great as Shaggy. He's he seems like such a cool guy. I've been in an interviews room with him, a couple times, for Scooby-Doo and for that Versus game. So I just think he's just so cool. And so even though he's a bad evil character here, I think he's great. And then we also have Skeet Ulrich in here. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And like Wayne Knight is in his. I mentioned Josh Hutcherson at the beginning of the podcast. So there's a lot here, but I just don't really care about the movie, and maybe because I'm not like a super fan. Like I've mentioned before, I played very, very little, and I guess I'm not like overly familiar with the backstory. I don't know, was it originally that kids were taken and their souls were in these animatronics? Because then why are they killing? So that's the other thing I don't understand. If these animatronics are killing, who's killing? Who's doing the killing? Because I think where we're at now, the kids' souls are no longer in them. And so I'm a little confused with that. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I dozed off during the movie. I don't know. So, we got that stuff. I think one of the things that bugs me is Josh Hutcherson's little sister. Because she's gotten bullied or stuff like that, she thinks of them as her friends, and then she really misses them because they're gone and she can't talk to them and all this stuff like that. And then that's where things get messed up, because so Josh Hutcherson, Mike, he finds this one thing, you see it in the trailers, like this talking, like speaking spells, something, whatever, and somehow she's able to start talking to him, and then she goes to one of the locations and opens a can of worm or whatever, Pandora's box, and go from there. But I feel like it's so unrealistic that she's like, oh, this is my friend. It's like, no, it's an animatronic. And for her just to be like, oh, it's an animatronic that is sentient. It has maybe a soul or something like that. And it's like she's not that young. And the fact that, it's a year later, I don't know. And then Wayne Knight's character, I must have missed something. It's like, that guy is he's like a teacher. He's just ridiculous. And
throughout the whole thing, like when like the murdering happens, Mike's Josh Hutcherson's like sister and is oblivious, and one of the things is Chica, the one, she basically she's like, oh, I can help you help the sister because like something happened, whatever, but she's like, you have to enter this code in the computer so we can leave the facility. So the fact that there's a way to prevent them from leaving, there is a code, like some security code that locks them in there. But why would they be bound by that when they're sent to, and again, maybe there's some logistical reasons that I don't know. But I feel like if they're quote unquote alive, that shouldn't matter, that they should be able to go out. But like once the code is entered, then whatever thing is turned off and they can go wherever they want now. And I don't know. I think some of the designs are kind of interesting, and just the idea of these things, whatever, being alive and killing, and that's like, okay, yeah, it's just it wasn't for me. And then there's like this revelation, and Mike isn't happy, and obviously there's a setup for a third movie. So I guess the question is like, how much will this movie make? Because this movie, the budget is according to Wikipedia, it's 36 to 51 million. So more than the first one, because they're probably like, oh, the first movie did well. Let's up the budget to try to make it, more interesting, which I appreciate that. Instead of they're like, okay, these people are going to watch it. We can make whatever. So far, I think the opening night, let's see, I think it was like 20 something million. It made 24.5 million on its first day. Oh, including 7.2 million in Thursday night previews. So let me just address that, since I'm just going all over the place. So when I went to my theater, is playing in a big theater, and because then I got like people sitting next to me. I'm like, why are you sitting next to me? This is a big theater, but it must have been fullish. And there was some, I don't know, the people in my row, I don't know if they're like teens, but they're obviously, I'm assuming they're fans of Five Nights at Freddy, because it kind of, I feel like it has like this sort of cult following. I could be wrong about that, and I don't know if it's all has to do with the game or what it's about. There's like some people are just like talking nonstop, and I don't know if this is just like the youth culture or just the COVID cult, post-COVID culture, because I've been in other movies where people are just kind of talking, and I think they're just used to sitting at home. You watch something and you can talk because you're just used to that. But it's like when you're in a theater, you can't do that. It's just annoying. Yeah. And so that was like the bad experience, where it's just like, shut up. So it wasn't for me. And I don't even know if I can really comment. I mean, the animatronics, I mean, there's nothing like overly spectacular about it. So it's not like, oh, this is groundbreaking, whatever. It was what it was. It was acceptable. It was fine. It was good. But yeah, I guess the story, it's just kind of, all over the place. And like, the daughter of Matthew Lillard's daughter, she's being haunted by, the stuff that he's done and everything like that. But yeah, so I was bummed, because I think I mentioned last week, I was kind of looking forward to this. I was like, okay, the first movie, I like the idea, and the fact that they made this movie, and that it is a silly idea, but I was like, okay, this could be fun and cool. But yeah, I didn't think it was. Again, maybe that's fine. And I don't know how true these concepts are to the game. Are they making stuff up? But from what I saw, like, and some people saying stuff that it's, I think there was like, and I don't even know, I think there was like some character that hadn't been seen in a while. They like brought him back out of nowhere, or they were, I don't know, but I can't really speak on that. So let's see, critical response, received negative reviews, who deemed it more ambitious than its predecessor, but falls flat on both storytelling and scares. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really scary, I wouldn't say. Let's say, sort of review aggregator, Rotten Tomatoes, 12% of 74 critics reviews are positive. The website's consensus reads, a step down from already clunky original. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 goes through the motions with all of the grace of a malfunctioning animatronic. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned to films a score 31 out of 100 based on 20 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Games Radar Plus, praised the film's upgraded animatronics. Okay, so maybe it looked better. I didn't really remember. And a handful of effective scares, but criticized its confusing and muddled storyline, weak character development, and the underuse of actors such as Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich. I agree, because for me, that's a selling point. And Josh Hutcherson. Slash Film was more negative, awarding the sequel 4 out of 10. It praised the practical animatronic effects and some successful moments of tension, reminiscent of the original game, but criticized the screenplay as bloated, uneven, and ultimately unable to tell a coherent story. Variety acknowledged film's stronger visual, polished production values compared to its predecessor, argued that excess of subplots and heavy reliance on franchise lore might alienate casual audiences. AV Club gave a harsher critique, citing the film's inconsistent pacing, excessive exposition, and difficulty balancing horror elements with its dense mythos, ultimately calling it a disappointing follow-up that struggles to stand on its own. Blah, 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 blah. But again, I mentioned this like my students on Friday. You were just saying, like, just having during a SEL, social emotional learning, where like when you talk about like, what was the best part of your week, what was the hardest part, and what are you looking forward to, type of thing. And so like my thorn, rosebud thorn, my thorn was I didn't like the movie, basically. And a couple of kids are like, their rose, their bud is they're looking forward to seeing the movie this week. And I'm like, well, you probably like it, maybe. So it's unfortunate. So take that, as you will. If you are a fan of it, if you are listening, so that's, I realize that when you listen to this might be the first time you're listening. Maybe you have no idea who I am, and you're just like, oh, Five Nights at Freddy. I want to hear what this is about. So, and this goes for everyone. I always say, when I speak of something, it's my opinion, and I am in no way ever claiming to be an expert on anything. Would never say my opinion is the definitive, stuff like that. I say that to my students because when I talk to my students, I'm right about everything, right? Yeah, so when I like something, that just means I like it. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to like it. And if I don't like something, doesn't mean everyone's not going to like it. So for me, this movie wasn't great. You might like it, and I wish I wanted to like it more than I did, but I just couldn't get into it, and I just struggled to. I was just like, man, when's this going to be over, type of thing. So that was just me and some of the critics, apparently. So there's not much more to say about it. If there's a third one, will I see it? I probably shouldn't, but I mean, you never know. And maybe it's a matter of like, if I rewatched the first one and then watch this one, maybe I'd be like a little more excited, more into it. But yeah, it's too bad because, like I said, it's a Blumhouse movie. I usually like everything they do, and it's just the whole theme and the vibe. I just wasn't feeling it here. And it bums me out. I left the theater. I'm like, man, I was disappointed, and I don't want to be pooping on anything, but that's where we're at. So hopefully, if you are a fan, I mean, and that's the thing, 88% Rotten Tomatoes score, 88%. Fans are enjoying it. So if you love if you like Five Nights at Freddy, you're probably going to enjoy this. You're probably going to appreciate what they do. The fact that they're making another movie, they're putting a big screen, they're exploring stuff. So cool, great. Yeah, that's just my opinion. So hopefully, if you see it, you will enjoy it way more than I did. You'll appreciate it way more than I did, and hopefully we'll get that third one sooner for you. And I hope this does well. Let's see, did they give I don't know if there was a projected score. It's projected to gross 45 to 47 million its opening weekend. So it might make the bottom budget the first weekend, so that could be good. And then it just needs to make more than that in order to like guarantee that sequel. So hopefully that happens. Because again, just because I like it, I want people to be happy. And if you are a fan and enjoy it, that is great. I'm happy for you because I want people to have stuff that they like. So there we go.
And hopefully you liked this episode, but that is going to be it for this week. So big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/jmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I believe this week I'm going to do an off my mind episode. So I'm kind of committed to do that. So we'll see how that goes. So 30 minutes, random topic, hopefully be interesting. But it will be, let's see, it's going to be so amazing. You're going to want to check it out. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. What are we going to have next week? We will have another Stranger Things. We'll have the third episode of season 5. We will have more Welcome to Derry. Oh my gosh, that show. We will have more Pluribus for Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake. And the movie feature, so there's nothing I don't think there's anything that is coming out this week that I would normally watch, but there's going to be Kill Bill, the what's it called? The whole bloody something. And it's basically, let's see, what was it called? Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair. So it's basically putting the two movies together with some extra stuff, and it's 4 hours and 40 minutes. And I'm like, holy crap! Can I sit in a theater for 4 hours? Can I stay awake in the theater for 4 hours? So yeah, and I did recently buy Volume 1 and Volume 2. I got the 4K Steelbooks, so I haven't watched them yet. So now I'm like, should I refresh these are the original, and then compare them? But then I don't know if I'm going to have the time over just this weekend to do that. And then the other thing is do I want to watch them and then watch it again, a couple days later? So I don't know, maybe I just angle it where it's okay, I may not remember precisely what happened in the original versions. I may not remember, this was an extra scene or this is extra footage, but maybe I can just, talk about how the whole 4-hour experience, almost 5-hour experiences. So we'll do that. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, because there's Ella McKay, which I wouldn't watch it, re-released How to Grinch Stole Christmas and Silent Night, Deadly Night. I would maybe watch that. I'm not even sure who's in it. Shining IMAX re-release. That would be great, but I'm not going to drive into the city. Oh, and then next week, Wake Up Dead Man, Knives Out mystery on December 12th, this Friday. It's out on Netflix. So I talked about that last week on a podcast, and it was really good. So I recommend that. But that is going to be it for this week. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you are doing well. Hope you find time to do cool things. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.